Chapter 3867. To be honest, your skills are not as good as the assassins in Death City. Luo Qingchen raised her eyebrows and turned to look at the youth behind her. Don't you think so? Bright stars flashed in the young man's eyes as he nodded lightly. Chen Shang naturally could not stand such humiliation. His face was filled with anger as he bent down to pick up the sword that had fallen to the ground. His eyes were filled with killing intent. He was considered to have some status among the palace guards, but now he was being humiliated in front of so many people. How could he tolerate it? Seeing this, Dai Ye immediately added fuel to the fire. Guard Chen, how can you tolerate such an unbridled assassin in the palace? If they disturb the king, it will be a great crime. Moreover, since they are assassins, it is only right to kill them without mercy. Men, end them for me. The guards looked at each other and nodded. Yes. Logically speaking, even if the other party was an assassin, they should still capture them alive. It was not appropriate to directly execute them on the spot. But it was clear that Chen Shang had been forced to the point of no return. He probably had to kill them. Luo Qingchen coldly snorted. Just as she was about to find a time to take out the Phoenix Dance sword from her portable space, the youth behind her blocked her way. She did not know why, but at this moment she felt that the aura on his body had changed. His originally innocent and harmless eyes darkened. Another loud rumble came from the sky, and the surroundings were filled with a solemn murderous aura. Protect Miss. Chun Tao knew martial arts and could naturally feel the aura on the youth's body. That pair of cold eyes seemed to want to devour everyone. Yao Yao. Luo Qingchen softly called out his name. This dramatic scene seemed to appear again, but this time it was different from the previous 2 times. It was as if she was not protecting him, but the other way around. He was protecting her. Don't leave either of them alive. Kill them both. Gu Heng's voice was very low. He had no intention of leaving them alive. Dai Ye, who was standing at the side, did not forget to jeer. Assassins deserve to die. Dying like this is too easy for them. You guys, come and protect the young lady. If anything happens to the young lady, the king won't let you off. Chun Tao continued. You have to know that although our young miss is also entering the palace as a harem, everyone is well aware that the king's feelings for the young miss cannot be compared to those orioles and swallows outside learning the palace rules. Luo Qingchen was slightly surprised. So this Dai Ye was also entering the palace for the selection. Enemies are bound to meet on a narrow road. However, before she could think about it, the young man in front of her had already launched an attack in Gu Heng's direction. At this moment everyone, including Luo Qingchen, was stunned. His speed was simply too fast. In less than 3 seconds, he had completely subdued Gu Heng. The sword in Gu Heng's hand had reached Gu Heng's neck in an extremely short amount of time. The long sword cut open a wound on his neck, and blood seeped out slightly. Don't mess around. Gu Heng clearly did not expect the other party's martial arts to be so high. He had been completely subdued in such a short amount of time. Not many people in Rome could reach this level of martial arts. Who could it be? Who could have this kind of skill? In fact, not to mention Gu Heng, even Luo Qingchen widened her eyes in shock. The young man in front of her did not seem to be the Yao Yao she had met in the Dead City. If he had this kind of martial arts, he definitely would not have been hit by the assassin's concealed weapon. And in the next second, something that shocked Luo Qingchen even more happened. End of chapter. Chapter 3868. The youth's frosty voice rang out as his gaze landed on Dai. I'll give you 2 choices. Either you disfigure yourself or I kill him. Hiss! Luo Qingchen sucked in a breath of cold air as she looked at the youth in front of her in shock. His back was elongated like a shadow and was especially dazzling under the flashes of lightning. What was going on? Didn't they say they wanted a mute? How could he speak? Not only could he speak, but his voice was also so pleasant to the ears. His voice had reached a whole new level, alright? You Don't tell me there's something wrong with your head. Daiye took a step back, not daring to look at Gu Heng. Gu Heng was indeed a member of the Dai family. He was also an imperial bodyguard promoted by his father. However, Daiye was naturally unwilling to exchange her looks for his life. Miss Dai Yu. Gu Heng saw Daiye take a step back and his heart turned cold. He had liked Daiye since he was young, so he didn't hesitate to sacrifice his life for the Dai family. In his eyes, even if Daiye was disfigured, he would still like her. However, her actions had hurt his heart. It seems like you've made your choice. The youth's voice was still cold, but Gu Heng felt a sense of familiarity. I'm warning you. I'm an official of the imperial court. Gu Heng's voice trembled slightly. The smell of fresh blood made him feel his heart beating wildly and uncontrollably. If the other party was really an assassin, so what if he had to sacrifice his life? But if he wasn't, oh? So what? The youth raised his eyebrows as a trace of disdain flashed across his eyes. The people I want to kill will always die, and the people I want to protect will always live. He smiled coldly as his gaze landed on Luo Qingchen. Am I right, Miss Luo? His voice was cold when he said the first part, but there was an inexplicable warmth when he said the last part. An inexplicable warmth. Daiye had already taken a few steps back, but the youth's hidden weapon hit her in the leg. It was still a peach blossom petal, but the strength of his petal was stronger than Luo Qingchen's. How could such an expert in using hidden weapons be so clumsy and get hit by hidden weapons in the dead city? What kind of joke was this? Was this person teasing him? The problem was, who was this person? At first, when she was told the name, she already felt strange. Now that she had this experience, why did she feel that it was a bit like, he's the male lead? The system's voice suddenly sounded, making Luo Qingchen's head buzz. She felt as if she had been struck by lightning. What the hell? He's the male lead, aren't you with me? Didn't the host say that the system might be broken? The system has been conducting self-maintenance ever since it entered this plane. The maintenance has just been completed. So what was the result of your maintenance? System, everything is normal. By the way, ding, affection has increased by 50. Mission completion rate is now 50%. This is the previous male lead's favorability towards the host. The system will now notify you. Goodbye, you. Luo Qingchen felt her face flush red. She suddenly remembered what she had said to him. Have you seen the king of the Rong Kingdom? Yes, I have. Do you think he's good-looking? It was beautiful. She couldn't remember exactly what they had said. Rong Jing's back view had changed from a young man who needed her protection to an incomparably powerful man in an instant. Or rather, it should be called a ruler. This chapter ends. Chapter 3869. Daiye let out a cry of surprise as she collapsed to the ground. It was probably because her voice was too loud that more and more people from the palace rushed over. One of them was Prime Minister Dai, who was about to leave the palace. Daughter, what happened to you? Seeing the blood flowing from Daiye's foot, Prime Minister Dai's face twisted. He immediately got up and looked at Rong Jing. You really don't want to live, you. The moment their eyes met, he felt that the surroundings were cold and gloomy, and the air was filled with a cold aura. You, what? Is there a problem? The moment his cold voice sounded again, Prime Minister Dai directly knelt on the ground. Her makeup was ruined from crying, and her voice was sharp. Father, why are you kneeling? He just used a hidden weapon to hurt me. Don't speak. Prime Minister Dai roared. He rarely yelled at Daiye, but he had no choice but to do so. Daiye was used to being arrogant since she was young, so she had never been injured before. This time, not only was she injured, she was even bleeding, but her father still told her not to speak. How could she tolerate this? Father, I'm injured. Both of them are assassins. Father, have you gone senile? They must be trying to harm the king, especially that man. He even used a hidden weapon to hurt me. Father, look at my wound, this is the palace, why are you kneeling to him? What are you afraid of? Daya said a lot of things, but Prime Minister Dai couldn't help but roar, "You shut up!" As soon as his voice fell, he kowtowed to Rongjing. "This humble subject has not taught his daughter well, please forgive me, King." He had been an official for many years, so even if Rongjing changed into a black robe, he almost never wore and covered his face. He only needed to look at him to know that he was Rongjing. "The reason why I'm called an old official is because I have sharp eyes. Only then can I be qualified to survive in the imperial court for so many years." The imperial bodyguards were completely stunned. They looked at Prime Minister Dai and then looked at Rongjing. It wasn't until Rongjing took off his mask that everyone knelt down with a thud. "Prime Minister Dai's daughter is quite interesting." His voice was filled with endless coldness as he said, "Would this emperor harm myself? How is this possible?" Daya felt her voice tremble uncontrollably. She took a deep breath and said, "King, why are you here? What does it have to do with you where I am?" Rongjing's cold eyes narrowed, and the corner of his mouth curved into an extremely cold smile. "It seems that this year's harem girls are not much. Throw them all out of the palace." "King, calm your anger. King, calm your anger." Prime Minister Dai hurriedly kowtowed. "The harem matter has been delayed for a long time. King, please don't change your mind because of my daughter. Reality has proven that a woman like Daya will only disturb the harem. What's the use of having her? My daughter is usually not like this. King, please calm your anger, haha." Rongjing coldly laughed, and his gaze fell on Guheng. The corner of his mouth curved into a cold smile. "This emperor feels that Prime Minister Dai's daughter and this emperor's imperial bodyguard are a good match. This emperor will agree to this marriage today." Daya and Guheng were both stunned. The two of them wanted to say something, but didn't dare to. After a long time, Prime Minister Dai could only kowtow and say, "Thank you, King, for your grace. This story will return to Qi." Lapis Lazuli always felt that it would be even more interesting after returning to Qi. End of chapter. Chapter 3870. With that, he turned around and looked at Luo Qingchen. She narrowed her eyes slightly. Her face was expressionless, and it was as if she had hidden her emotions. But he could still see some of it. She was probably angry. "All of you can leave." He gently waved his hand, and everyone felt relieved. They almost wanted to run away from the side of this cold and frosty king. In less than a few seconds, only she and Rongjing were left at the south gate. Luo Qingchen didn't say anything. Rongjing looked at her with a faint smile. After a long time, he said, "It's not good to be angry. Eat something first." "How can you?" Luo Qingchen looked away and pretended to be angry. "So the Rong country's ruler likes to lie to people. You gave me this identity, not me." Rongjing's eyes were faint, and his lips curved into a faint smile. "I took advantage of the situation. It was purely a coincidence." "Oh, really?" Luo Qingchen raised her eyebrows slightly and said, "So the king's arrival in the Dead City was also a coincidence?" So the king's clumsy sacrifice was also a coincidence?" Luo Qingchen's eyes unconsciously flashed with a glimmer of light. The more she spoke, the less angry she felt. "Clumsy." Rongjing's lips curved into a faint smile, like a spring breeze. There was a feeling of contrast in the red walls of the deep palace. He seemed to be different from the cold king in the eyes of others. But why did he come to get close to her? Ahem. Luo Qingchen cleared her throat and said, "If the king's hidden weapon wasn't so accurate, maybe your acting that day in the Dead City wasn't too clumsy." She should have thought of it, but the system didn't give her any hints, so she denied this idea. It was all the system's fault. How could someone with such good looks be mediocre? "All right." Rongjing narrowed his eyes slightly and revealed a faint smile. "Why don't we talk over dinner?" He walked up to her casually and held her hand even more casually. There were palace maids and eunuchs passing by. Although they didn't dare to look directly, they still widened their eyes when they saw it from the corner of their eyes. This was their first time seeing the king holding a woman's hand. All this time, Rong Jing did not have a single woman in his harem. Not only did he not appoint an empress, he did not even take in a concubine. As for the reason, no one knew. However, the court officials were anxious about the next ruler of Rome, but they didn't dare to make it too obvious. They could only submit memorials one after another, hoping that Rong Jing would take a concubine for the sake of the country. Coincidentally, the Qi kingdom had sent their princess over. Rong Jing could no longer suppress this matter, so he allowed them to do as they wished. Anyway, even if someone entered the harem, did it have anything to do with him? That was the suggestion of the court officials. If the court officials wanted it, they could take it for themselves. In Rong Jing's eyes, any woman in this world had nothing to do with him. But he inexplicably felt that the reason why he suddenly compromised on this matter was because the Qi kingdom wanted to send some princess over. It was better not to send this kind of princess. After all, he didn't want to be on good terms with the Qi kingdom. If he sent her over, he wouldn't be able to attack them in the future. It would be troublesome. Therefore, his initial purpose of going to the dead city wasn't to save Luo Qinchen. It was to kill her. However, Luo Qinchen really didn't know about this matter. Chapter 38-71. You mean, your original intention was to kill me? Luo Qinchen held the osmanthus cake in her hand and suddenly lost her appetite. Sure enough, the rumors about Rong Jing in the Rong country were very accurate. He was a person as cold as ice and his methods were very unusual. He replied faintly, the dark light in his eyes focused on her. Then why did you change your mind later? Luo Qinchen blinked her clear eyes. She thought that since she had already said this much, the other party should have a sweet response. For example, because I regretted it the moment I saw you. Or, when I looked at you, I only wanted to protect you. Or, when I saw so many assassins trying to kill you, I couldn't hold my sword. Luo Qinchen had already gone through many words of love in her mind, and she planned to listen carefully to what Rong Jing would say to her. Little did she know that when she opened her mouth, the faint smile on her face instantly froze. Ah! His eyebrows lightly raised as he looked into her eyes. A faint light flashed in his eyes, because this one knows his own limits. What? Luo Qinchen was slightly stunned and her face was filled with doubt. This one knows that this one can't beat you. He would never forget that night in the City of Death. The girl was dressed in white and held a glowing red sword in her hand. Under the moonlight, her face was as cold as ice. Facing countless assassins, there was not the slightest trace of fear in her eyes. The sword in her hand fell and blood splattered everywhere, but her expression did not change at all. There was no pity, no mockery, and not even a hint of emotion. It was probably at that moment that her expression moved him, and he accidentally brushed the leaves on the side. Her ears moved slightly and he knew that she knew where he was. If he did not appear at this time, it would be too unreasonable. But if he appeared, the other party must remember him, so Rong Jing thought of this method. It seemed very clumsy, but luckily she thought that he could not speak, so it was not that easy to be exposed. I don't think so. Luo Qinchen put the osmanthus cake in her mouth and said, the king's martial arts should be above mine. Below. Rong Jing looked at her and said, you can win without a fight. She didn't know if it was because the osmanthus cake was too sweet or because the breeze blowing through the window was too warm. Luo Qinchen felt a strange sweetness in her heart. It was a sweetness that made her lips unconsciously raise. That night, she moved into the palace. Rong Jing did not announce that she was the princess of Qi Kingdom, because he knew that after they left, someone went to the dead city the next day to find her. After a day's investigation, he had a rough idea who was looking for her. The king of the kingdom, the one she should be called brother. Asked Rong Have-Have's name. Why did they want to kill them? Logically speaking, since she was the princess of the Qi kingdom and the Rong kingdom, the Qi kingdom should not have sent people to kill her. Even if they wanted to kill, they should have waited until they entered Tide City. That way, they could at least accuse Rong Goen of something. But if they made a move in the Dead City, it meant that they wanted her life. Isn't it obvious? Luo Qingchen's eyes narrowed and her lips curled into a cold smile. The Empress of the Kingdom of Qi wants to kill me. Why? Luo Qingchen blinked and smiled. It's probably because she's afraid that I'll steal her man. You're talking about King Qi? Yes. She took a sip of tea and said, I have no blood relation to King Qi. Chapter 3872. She had always thought that one day, she would return to Qi Kingdom and personally avenge the original owner as a king. The grievances she had suffered all those years ago, the injuries she had suffered all those years ago, and the wrong person she had married all those years ago, I see. Rong Jing looked at her meaningfully. After a long time, he said, Rest early. You must be tired these days. Is there nothing the king wants to know? Luo Qingchen blinked. She was a little puzzled by Rong Jing's lack of questions. Was he such an indifferent person? I'm afraid that if I keep asking, I won't let you go back tonight. Rong Jing narrowed his eyes and said, Qi Kingdom gave me such a big gift, so I should let it rest. But now, it seems that there is no need for it to rest. There was a hint of coldness and decisiveness in his voice. Luo Qingchen looked at his eyes and couldn't help but feel a little nervous. From Rong Jing's words, did he want to start a war with Qi Kingdom? In her memory, Rong Kingdom and Qi Kingdom were equally powerful. However, looking at Rong Jing's expression, he felt that if Rong Guo wanted to destroy the Qi Kingdom, it would be a very simple matter. The next morning, Luo Qingchen got up early. After yesterday's incident, Dai Yeye had been expelled from the palace to marry Chen Shang. This meant that she had nothing to do with the palace in this life. But the young mistresses who had already entered the palace were still there, learning the palace rules with Mother Qi. Most of these young mistresses had been pampered since they were young. It was not easy to learn the rules in the palace. In addition, Mother Qi was one of Rong Jing's people. She had been by the king's side for a long time, so she naturally knew what he was thinking. Being with the king was like being with a tiger. Being a servant in the palace was a matter of hanging one's head around one's neck. Guessing the king's thoughts was something that every servant had to do. Luo Qingchen was probably bored. She wandered around the imperial garden with the kitten that Gu Heng brought. Yes, this cat was already alive and kicking today, and there were no major problems. Luo Qingchen knew what had happened even if she didn't look into the details. Since Rong Jing was the mute teenager who had always been with her, then the cat's illness must have something to do with him. More accurately, some of the drugs were even given to the kitten by someone. However, she had no evidence. Meow, the kitten meowed at her and went into the imperial garden. As soon as it got in, it heard a familiar shout. Ah, Lin Fangfang exclaimed, where did this wild cat come from? It scratched me. Just as Lin Fangfang was about to reach out to grab the kitten, Luo Qingchen picked up the kitten with lightning speed. Luo Qingchen, it's you again. Where do you think this is? You even brought a dirty cat with you. Are you crazy? Lin Fangfang's character was still as irritable as when she was at the inn. She looked like she had eaten some irritable beans. But it was normal. After all, she had been tortured by Nanny Qi for 2 days. She was more and more determined that she didn't come to the palace to choose a concubine, but to be a maid. At this moment, she happened to meet Luo Qingchen again. She was furious. Dirty cat? Don't dig out its eyes. Luo Qingchen gently stroked the kitten's fur. It meowed at Lin Fangfang with hostility. Everyone stopped and looked at Lin Fangfang and Luo Qingchen. Probably because Lin Fangfang's family was a little rich and she was the daughter of a government official, everyone flattered her more or less. Now that they saw her quarreling with someone, they naturally stood on her side. Chapter 38-73. Is she a maid from that palace? She looks like one. She's dressed so plainly. She looks like a maid. Sister Fongfong, don't be angry. When you officially enter the harem, you can transfer this maid to be your servant. Let's see how arrogant she can be. The young masters were all speaking one after another, and what they said was really not pleasant to hear. Probably because Nanichi was not here, they seemed to be more arrogant. It seemed that they were venting their anger on Luo Qingchen at the same time. But who was Luo Qingchen? How could she be a punching bag for others? How can you be qualified to enter the harem? Is the harem of the Rong state so ugly? Luo Qingchen sneered and looked Lin Fongfong up and down. A playful smile flashed through her eyes. Do you know why your father begged me to enter the harem with you? Shut up, you, because... Lin Fongfong wanted to suppress Luo Qingchen with her voice, but she didn't expect that Luo Qingchen interrupted her quickly. You're ugly. PFFF. The younger sister of the top scholar standing not far away couldn't help but laugh. She faintly opened her mouth and said, I actually feel that this young lady is right. Some people don't know how to look at themselves in the basin of water before entering the palace. Do you really think you can enter the harem by putting on some rouge and powder on your face? Hearing this, Lin Fongfong's whole face turned red. She felt that she was going to explode. But Lin Fongfong was also a young mistress like her. Nanichi had warned her again and again not to cause trouble. Since she couldn't vent her anger on her, she could only vent her anger on Luo Qingchen. She naturally knew that she was not a maid, but she had seen her in the inn. She was dressed so shabbily that she definitely wasn't a young mistress. Instead, she was more like a relative of a maid. The next second, she raised her hand without saying a word and wanted to slap Luo Qingchen. But with her speed, how could she hit Luo Qingchen? When Luo Qingchen was about to take her wrist and slap her back, Luo Qingchen suddenly stopped her. A warm palm pulled her back. The sudden pull made her lose her balance, and she instantly fell into a warm embrace. The other party snorted softly with a touch of warmth, as if her falling into his arms was something that he had long planned. No one could understand the joy in his heart. At the same time, he decisively grabbed Lin Fongfong's hand and gave it a hard push. Lin Fongfong seemed to be in a daze as she screamed, Who pushed me? I didn't grow. In the next second, when Rong Jing's cold face appeared in front of her, her whole face turned pale and she almost couldn't stand still. Why aren't you saluting the king when you see him? The eunuch beside Rong Jing roared. Everyone was stunned and immediately knelt down in a trembling voice, Greetings to the king. Rong Jing ignored them and gently tucked the hair in front of her forehead behind her ear. He gently looked into her eyes and said, Who said you were a maid? The woman who said she was a maid turned pale and her body couldn't stop trembling. You're so smart, you must know. This one knows. His gaze was on her from beginning to end. The corner of his mouth rose slightly. Take her down and give her 50 strokes. She'll never be allowed to enter the palace. Yes, the eunuch said. In the next second, Rong Jing continued, Who said you were dressed plainly? Immediately, the woman kneeling in the corner cried out, King, spare me, King, spare me. Take her down and give her 100 strokes. Rong Jing narrowed his eyes slightly. Send all the brocades in Tianxian City to the palace. Chapter 38-74. At this moment, the people kneeling on the ground were already at a loss of what to do. Actually, the one with the worst expression was the beauty who wanted to make her a servant girl. She lowered her head even more, deeply afraid that the next person to be slaughtered by this harsh monarch would be her. But the truth was, how could Rong Jing let her go? As for the person who wanted to make you a servant girl, Rong Jing's gaze was still on Luo Qingchen. He looked at her deeply from head to toe and said, Let her go to the laundry room to be a servant girl. If this servant girl is not competent, Rong Jing paused. The beauty immediately kowtowed and said, King, please spare my life. If she is not competent, I will bring the heads of her entire family to see me. The moment his voice fell, he looked at her with an extremely cold voice. His eyes flashed with a dark light, filled with dignity. The beauty's face turned completely pale and she fainted. But so what if she fainted? It did not change her fate of going to the laundry room. Everyone present did not know who Luo Qingchen was. They also did not know why she suddenly appeared in the palace and was suddenly doted on by this cold monarch. And this kind of doting was an unattainable existence in the eyes of others. My daughter, oh no! The beauty frantically kowtowed and said, "This servant obeys the decree." Rong Jing did not say anything else. Instead, he held Luo Qingchen's hand and walked towards Jinghe Palace. None of the beauties kneeling on the ground dared to raise their heads. Lin Fangfang was even more stunned. She looked as if she had lost something. At this moment she seemed to have suddenly grown up. It was as if her life had come to an end at this moment. The reality was as such. After that, the fortune of the Lin family began to plummet. Lin Lan and Lin Fangfang had no choice but to live on the streets, living a life of intermittent meals. Although this was all in the future, the person who could cause the Lin family to decline was naturally the emperor sitting in front of her. The ruler of the Rong kingdom, Rong Jing. Why do I feel like the king is deliberately using me as a shield? Luo Qingchen said softly, the corners of her mouth rising slightly. Rong Jing put down his black piece unhurriedly, and there was a gentle light in his eyes. Qingchen, don't you know my intentions? The king's eyes are too dark. I can't see them clearly, so I can't understand your feelings. Luo Qingchen rested her chin on her right hand. Don't tell me you don't like women. Ding, affection has increased by 10. Mission completion rate is now 60%. When the system prompt sounded, Luo Qingchen was startled, and the other party seemed to be startled as well. The moment their eyes met, she suddenly felt that she had said something wrong. Because Rong Jing gently put down the black chess piece, his whole body instantly moved to her side and looked at her deeply. There was a faint sandalwood scent coming from his body, which made people feel dizzy when they took a deep breath. Luo Qingchen quickly held her breath. Her eyes opened wide as she looked at him and said, "You? What do you want to do?" "This one suddenly wants to ask you to help this one with something." Rong Jing's eyes sparkled and there was a faint smile on his lips. This kind of smile was faintly discernible, with a touch of probing aura. I feel that I might not be able to help." Luo Qingchen blinked in a panic and moved back a bit. The chess box filled with white words was almost brushed off by her sleeve. Rong Jing's left hand caught it and his right hand took her waist. She was a bit stunned and he kissed her. Chapter 3875. Ding, affection has increased by 10. Mission completion rate is now 70%. Luo Qingchen did not even have time to react before Rong Jing left her lip. There was an ambiguous atmosphere in the air. Luo Qingchen pursed her lips and put her hands behind her as she looked at him with a red face. Rong Jing slowly said after he finished kissing her, "Since this one took the throne, there have been rumors in the palace that this one doesn't like girls. Now that you've come to Jinghe Palace, help this one break this rumor." His voice was normal, but Luo Qingchen could feel a faint warmth in it. There was an ambiguous aura all around. King. I feel like I'm not strong enough." Luo Qingchen was a bit nervous. Rong Jing was very close to her and there was a unique aura coming from him, slowly eroding her thoughts. Rong Jing's face came closer and closer in front of her. When their faces were about to touch, Luo Qingchen suddenly closed her eyes. His lips curled into a smile as he placed a kiss on her forehead. After a long time, she slowly opened her eyes. He had already returned to his seat. He faintly said, "Zhen suddenly feels that once the Empress coronation ceremony is over, those rumors in the palace and in the court will all be dispelled without any attack." Coronation? Empress? Luo Qingchen was a bit stunned. She pursed her lips and looked at him as she said, Actually, although we've already met in the Dead City, do you really believe me? She couldn't help feeling a bit of fear, but it wasn't because she had done something wrong to Rong Jing. Rather, it was because she suddenly remembered the previous host's memories. When she came to the Rong country from the Qi country, she had a mission. The mission Qi Yi gave her was to steal the secrets of the Rong country, giving the Qi country a chance to destroy the Rong country. How smart was Rong Jing? Even if the previous host didn't die in the Dead City, it was impossible for her to fool Rong Jing. But Rong Jing, it was different from what she had imagined. He clearly knew her identity, but he had never doubted her. He even wanted to make her his empress without any hesitation. For some reason, this feeling made her eyes turn red. Why not? He played with the chess piece in his hand and looked at her eyebrows and eyes. I'm Rong Jing's wife. Why don't I believe her? He had never liked anyone in his life. If he liked someone, he would always like that person. She was his one and only wife in this life, and he would personally send anyone who wanted to harm her to hell. Rong Jing's wife. Luo Qingchen pursed her lips and smiled, her eyes twinkling with bright stars. I like this title. As long as you like it. He narrowed his eyes and revealed a gentle smile. She rarely saw him smile, but she didn't know that he could look so good when he smiled. The coronation ceremony was to be held in 3 days. During these 3 days, the imperial court was abuzz with discussion. The harem girls who were still in the palace were secretly discussing Luo Qingchen's identity. I heard that the future empress was originally a woman who did odd jobs in an inn. She was able to meet the king this time because of her methods. Cough, cough. I advise you to keep your voice down. The future empress is not someone you can discuss just because you want to. Why can't we discuss this? I also heard that she has some medical skills. That day, she entered the palace to treat the king's kitten. I don't know what method she used, but she actually flew to the top. Everyone wanted to keep their voices down, but there was one person who was especially loud. General Gu's daughter, Gu Xiaohua, the #1 beauty in the Rong country. Chapter 3876. How can a woman like her, who got to the king's position by cheating, become the queen of my brother? She was very beautiful, with a pair of peach blossom-shaped eyes that shone like obsidian with a hint of anger. She had liked Rong Jing since she was a child and knew that Rong's army was relatively weak. She had put down the needle and thread of an ordinary woman and picked up a long spear and a long sword to protect Rong for him. Although she knew that Rong Jing was not interested in any woman in the world, at least she felt that she was the closest person to Rong Jing. However, he didn't expect that someone would appear out of nowhere. An inexplicable woman who appeared out of nowhere was going to become the queen of Rong. She was not envious of the so-called queen at all. She was more envious that the woman was Rong Jing's wife. When the crowd saw Gu Xiaohua, they all stepped aside and did not dare to say anything. After entering the palace for so many days, they had seen with their own eyes the beauties who were sent away. Now Mother Qi was not strict with them as before, and their days in the palace were more comfortable. At this time, they did not want to make any mistakes. Gu Xiaohua snorted coldly and walked in the direction of the martial arts practice field. She knew that Rong Jing would go to the training field every month at this time, and there had never been an accident. However, what Gu Xiaohua did not expect was that Rong Jing did go to the training field with Luo Qingchen. She was wearing a light blue jade dress, and her long black hair was combed into a 5-phoenix bun with a golden hairpin of 8 treasures on top of her head. She was waving the translucent thorny chrysanthemum fan in her hand, which looked out of place in such a training field, but was extremely elegant. Gu Xiaohua saw Luo Qingchen from not far away, and the anger in her heart rose. How could such a delicate woman become the queen of Rong? What could she bring to Rong Jing? No, she couldn't help him at all. While thinking, Gu Xiaohua picked up a spear from both sides of the martial arts practice field and knelt down. Xiaohua has seen the king. Rong Jing hadn't noticed Gu Xiaohua's arrival at the martial arts practice field, because his gaze had been faintly fixed on Luo Qingchen. After all, he still had a lot of things to do, and he didn't have much time to calm down and look at her. However, this request to have an audience with him had disturbed his mood. Rong Jing's brows furrowed slightly as he replied faintly, "What's the matter?" Xiaohua recently heard that the frontier was in turmoil, and many soldiers couldn't bear the hardship, so they wanted to come to the practice field to teach them how to drill. Her words were extremely dignified, but Luo Qingchen could hear the hostility in them. The enmity between women could be clearly felt even if it was just a trivial sentence. Rong Jing was about to speak, but Luo Qingchen gently waved her fan and spoke in front of her. "Then I'll have to trouble you." Gu Xiaohua was quite dissatisfied with Luo Qingchen, but because of Rong Jing's presence, she couldn't directly get angry at her, so she had to change her way of speaking. "Miss, you don't know, but training soldiers requires good physique and martial arts. It's indeed very difficult." Her eyes met Gu Xiaohua's as she coldly said, "It's just that serving the king, is what I should do as a subject." Luo Qingchen snorted softly, thinking, her words are really powerful. But I've never been bullied by others, no one can? The next second, she slightly narrowed her eyes, and a faint sneer flashed through her eyes. "But I really don't think it's that hard." Chapter 3877. The suffering the previous host had suffered in the Qi kingdom was definitely millions of times worse than the person in front of her. If training the soldiers in the martial arts field was hard enough, then what was the time when she was defending the dead city? "Miss usually stays in the boudoir, so you don't know what hard work is." Gu Xiaohua did not call her queen, nor did she call her by her full name. It was just that miss, it gave people a very distant feeling. "Let's have a match over there." Luo Qingchen gently put down the round fan in her hand, a cold light flashing in her eyes. Rong Jing looked at her from the side, his eyes filled with admiration and love. Although Gu Xiaohua had been on the battlefield all year round, her martial arts were definitely above hers. So even if it was a match, he had nothing to worry about. On the contrary, there was an inexplicable joy in her heart, as if she was being valued. In the past, he had never felt such a comfortable feeling. "Miss, don't joke around." Gu Xiaohua's eyes flashed with a dark light, but the corners of her mouth curved into a mocking smile. "You probably won't even be able to lift your sword." In the next second, there was a quang dang sound. Luo Qingchen directly jumped up, pulling out a long sword from the hand of a guard at the side, and attacked in Gu Xiaohua's direction. Her speed was very fast. Gu Xiaohua did not even have time to react before she was already in front of her. Although her head did not turn, her body was very honest. She only saw her raise the long spear in her hand to block with all her might. She could completely feel the other's pressure. See, the surrounding soldiers all sucked in a breath of cold air. The future queen in front of them was wearing a silk skirt, the wind blew her hair. She looked so delicate, but the aura she gave off when she held the long sword was so strong. "You!" Gu Xiaohua was stunned, beads of sweat unconsciously appearing on her forehead. That collision of strength just now had let her feel the other's strength. Her martial arts. A straightforward person does not speak insinuations. I also do not like to beat around the bush. Luo Qingchen raised her long sword, the corners of her mouth curved into a faint cold smile. "The winner is king." The other party already put it like this: it was already impossible for Gu Xiaohua not to fight. Even though she could feel the powerful aura from her opponent, she still had to fight this battle. She originally wanted to fight, but she didn't know why. But at this moment, when she looked into Luo Qingchen's eyes, she felt an inexplicable sense of fear in her heart. It was as if her eyes were cold and fearless, as if she was not afraid of anything. Gu Xiaohua took a deep breath and gripped his spear tightly. "Come." "Humph." Luo Qingchen snorted and muttered, "You overestimate yourself." In an instant, she leaped and attacked Gu Xiaohua. She was certain that her sword skills had already reached the pinnacle of perfection. Unfortunately, she did not have the phoenix dance sword in her hands, so it was not very convenient to use. However, it only took him a few seconds to knock down the spear in Gu Xiaohua's hand. Clang! The long spear fell to the ground. The long sword in Luo Qingqian's hand went straight to her throat. Her eyes were floating, and she was slightly in disbelief. After a few seconds, she frowned and lowered her eyes. You lost. Luo Qingqian's right hand loosened, and the long sword fell to the ground. The night wind blew gently. She slightly tidied her clothes, the corners of her mouth curved into a faint smile, and walked towards Rong Jing. He slowly stood up, reached out his hand to catch her, and pulled her into his embrace. Are you hot? His voice was very gentle. The surrounding eunuchs and palace maids all lowered their eyes. They had never seen Rong Jing like this before, and their hearts were filled with fear. Luo Qingqian picked up the round fan again, looking as if she was used to it. She tucked a strand of hair behind his ear and said, Let's go back and drink iced plum soup. Chapter 3878. Gu Xiaohua watched their backs and her heart couldn't calm down for a long time. Who was this girl named Luo Qingqian? Why did she feel that she was strangely familiar after the battle? But she couldn't remember where she had seen her before or where she had interacted with her before. Jinghe Palace. The iced plum soup in this season was very good. There was a sweet and sour taste when it entered her mouth. Rong Jing never liked sweets, but he knew that she liked it, so he prepared some for her. Recently, the Rong kingdom had been getting hotter, which was related to the desert to the north. Luo Qingqian always had a fan in her hand. Rong Jing seemed to care about her, so there were many ice cubes in the Jinghe Palace today to reduce the heat. King, don't you think it's hot with 3 layers of ice here? Luo Qingqian fanned herself as she said, Could it be that the people of the Rong kingdom are more resistant to heat? She slightly blinked as a faint liguang appeared in her eyes. Her lips curled into a faint smile. Rong Jing nodded as he fell into a bit of a daze at this moment. Ding, affection has increased by 10. Mission completion rate is now 80%. Luo Qingqian was stunned. This sudden increase in affection made her a bit dazed. Rong Jing softly said with a bit of pampering in his calm voice, If you don't sit beside this one won't feel the heat at all. She looked into his eyes. There was a bright starlight in his deep eyes, as if he was expressing some kind of ambiguous emotion. Luo Qingqian immediately looked away and changed the topic. Why have you been looking at the map recently? Is the Rong kingdom about to go to war? She had been in the Rong kingdom for a few days, and the Rong kingdom's military was much stronger than she imagined. It could be said that it was a peaceful time, so there was no need to go to war. She was just casually asking, but she never thought that Rong Jing would silently nod. Yes. Luo Qingqian blinked and said, This decisive? Does the Rong kingdom want to expand their territory? Today the world was divided into 2. One half belonged to the Qi nation, while the other half belonged to the Rong nation. Back then, when the original owner was still in Qi kingdom, she had expanded Qi kingdom many times, but in the end, she was just a chess piece in someone else's hands. Perhaps she was not even a chess piece. She was just a tool that had never received any care. Occasionally in the dead of night, Luo Qingqian couldn't help but think of the story of the original owner. The more he thought about it, the more he couldn't calm down. The original owner had always had a question in her heart. After so many years, had she ever left any impression in Qi Ye's heart? The facts proved that, not at all. No matter how many times she tried to explain it to him in her heart, she kept finding excuses for him, but in the end all her dreams were shattered in the city of death. He had given her an answer, but it was an unforgettable answer. After hearing Rong Jing's answer, Luo Qingqian was a little dazed. After a few seconds, she reacted and said, Who are you going to hit? Rong Jing looked at her eyes. After a while, he gently raised his right hand and patted her head. The Qi nation. What? Luo Qingchen was stunned. A look of surprise flashed through her eyes. Rong Jing's brows furrowed slightly. With a tinge of jealousy, he teased, "What? You can't bear to?" After the coronation ceremony, she would be the only queen in his life, the only master of the harem. He would never let her suffer in vain, nor would he let the people who bullied her get away. He already knew everything she had experienced in the Qi kingdom. Transmigration female lead. Prince Charming can't stop teasing. Chapter 3879. Who wouldn't be willing? Luo Qingchen snorted, her eyes darkening. That place is no different from the dead city to me. I'm just a little worried. Worried about what? Has the king never personally led an army into battle before? Never. Rong Jing looked at her slightly furrowed brows and said, "The Rong army is enough, there's no need for this emperor to personally lead an army." Luo Qingchen looked at his brows and could naturally feel the slight anger in his deep eyes. He was probably jealous. PFFF. Luo Qingchen couldn't help but laugh. With the king like this, I don't even dare to continue. Rong Jing's deep eyes flashed with a faint light, his thin lips lightly gritted. What does it matter if you say it or not? At most, this emperor will blame you in his heart. How would he dare to blame you on the surface? What? Luo Qingchen shrugged and said, "You speak as if I bullied the king. You really did bully this emperor when you just arrived." Rong Jing casually played with her fine black hair and said, "Just say it, are you protecting the Qi kingdom because of Qi Yi?" The more he learned about her in the Qi kingdom, the more he couldn't calm down. He never wanted to rule the world, but it was different now. No matter what price he had to pay, he wanted that man to bow down to her. How am I protecting him? Luo Qingchen blinked her eyes, her voice filled with grievance. "I'm clearly worried about you. The Rong army isn't close to the Qi kingdom. If the two countries are evenly matched, our troops will definitely be at a disadvantage." You think he's evenly matched with this emperor? Rong Jing raised his brows in disdain, the light in his eyes dimming. He used him and himself here, not the Rong army and the Qi army. Naturally, she knew what he meant. She smiled and said, "The king is different from him." "What's the difference?" Rong Jing asked. He didn't seem to want to let go of Luo Qingchen. Actually, she knew the anger in his heart. The jealousy and anger in his heart made him frown like a little old man. She raised her right hand and smoothed out his brows. "If the king didn't frown, you would look 1,000,000 times better than him." "Good looking." His eyes were filled with helplessness towards Luo Qingchen's answer. A few seconds later, he unconsciously stretched his eyebrows and looked at her gently. "What else?" "I never liked him." Luo Qingchen gave him a firm look. "But I like you so much." The next second, Rong Jing's right hand suddenly grabbed her wrist, pulled her into his arms, and kissed her with thin cold lip. His red cheeks and the sound of his heart beating was enough to show how nervous he was at this moment. This kiss was much longer than last time. It was like his breath was drunk, making people deeply immersed. In an instant, his low and ambiguous voice sounded in her ear. "You don't need to go back tonight." As soon as his voice fell, Rong Jing picked her up and walked towards the inner room. Luo Qingchen didn't seem to react. She pointed at the memorial on the table and said, "Your document. This emperor wants to relax today." Rong Jing kissed her lips again. "After invading for a while," he said, "but this emperor doesn't think it's relaxing. It might be more tiring." It was probably because of his suggestive words that her face instantly turned red, and the redness slowly spread to her ears. Transmigration female lead. Male god, keep teasing. Chapter 3880. As it turned out, the person who was tired wasn't Rong Jing, but her. At noon, Rong Jing was no longer by her side. Her personal maid told her that Rong Jing had gone to the Grand Council to discuss some matters. Luo Qingchen thought that the so-called matter was probably related to attacking Qi, but she was still a little worried. The original owner had fought on the battlefield for Qi for so many years, so she was very familiar with Qi's military strength. It was definitely not a weak country. Since it was divided into two countries, Qi must have its reasons for being strong. If the two countries were evenly matched, then if Qi attacked Rome, then Rome would have a higher chance of winning. Long and difficult journeys were definitely fatal to their military strength. On the other hand, if Rome attacked Qi, then Qi would have a higher chance of winning. She knew very well from the days she spent with him that Rong Jing was someone who was bound to succeed. Since he had decided on something, then he would definitely do it. Even if it was difficult, she would not back down. She also knew that the reason he did this was for her. She remembered what happened in the City of Death, let alone him. However, there was no battle in this world that was guaranteed to be won. Therefore, even if Rong Jing had enough confidence in himself and was determined to do this, Rongwa couldn't be sure that he would win. But she would never let herself lose a second time. Yes. Dinner time. Luo Qinchen wanted to wait for Rong Jing to eat dinner together, but Rong Jing still hadn't returned. He didn't come back until it was almost midnight. Although his face was a little tired, his face was still full of energy. The king is in a good mood today. Luo Qinchen walked out from behind the curtain and ordered the servants to heat up the food. She crossed her arms and looked at Rong Jing. "You're back so late. Did you miss me?" He walked forward and wrapped his hands around her waist, pulling her into his embrace. There was a faint smile on his lips. "Then just say it. Why are you angry?" Luo Qinchen tilted her head to the side and pursed her lip. "I'm hungry." In the next second, his slender fingers gently flicked her forehead. "Who allowed you to be hungry?" "Aya." Luo Qinchen hurriedly pressed her hand to her forehead. She pouted and looked at him angrily. "The king came back to play like this and bully people. Is there any reason in this world? Is there any law? All right, don't be angry." Rong Jing saw that she was so angry that her face was flushed. He gently touched her face, then took her hand and said, "The army will set off in 3 days, all the way to the north." 3 days later? Luo Qinchen was stunned. "Why are you in such a hurry?" They were attacking the Qi kingdom, not some small kingdom at the border. Therefore, they had to be very cautious in the deployment of their troop. Even the route of their supplies had to be planned in advance. Otherwise, it was very likely that their supplies would be intercepted by the enemy, making it difficult for the army to move. Because this one is in a hurry. This one can't bear to see those people who bullied you live even an extra hour. His voice was still very gentle, but it was filled with incomparable determination. "So who do you plan on sending this time?" Luo Qinchen knit her brows and said, "Gu Xiaohua." To be honest, just from that day at the practice field, Gu Xiaohua's strength wasn't even a third of hers. If he was going to send Gu Xiaohua, it would be better to send her. No. Rong Jing shook his head and said, "This time, this one will personally lead the troops." "What?" Luo Qinchen cried out in surprise. Her eyes widened as she looked at him and said, Haven't you never led troops in battle before?" As for Chia, Rong Jing gave a soft laugh. "If this one doesn't personally go to break the city, how can this be a sign of respect?" Transmigration Female Lead. Male God, keep teasing. Chapter 3881. His voice was very teasing as a chill flashed in his eyes. Especially when he said the words Qi, his voice was even colder. "You really want to go?" Luo Qinchen blinked in a daze, already having a little plan in her heart. Rong Jing could see through her little plan with a single glance. He softly tapped her head and said, "Don't think about it, it's impossible for me to bring you there." He didn't investigate her identity very thoroughly, but he knew everything that happened to her in the Qi kingdom. His heart ached that much. If there was a chance, he even hoped that the Rong kingdom would have surrendered when she led the army back then. That way she wouldn't have suffered that much pain. Rong Jing always felt that all of this was because he didn't lead the army himself. If he had personally led the army back then, perhaps she wouldn't have suffered that much. This was why, even though the Empress coronation had been over for so long and all the people in the palace were discussing her identity, he still didn't announce that she was the Qi Kingdom's princess. Because he knew that this title wasn't suited for her. She was the Rong Kingdom's queen, but she wasn't the Qi Kingdom's princess. Why? Luo Qingchen looked at him with wide eyes and said, "Why don't you bring me along? Not to mention my martial arts not being below Gu Xiaohua's, my strategy is definitely above hers, all right? Then again, who is more familiar with the Qi Kingdom than me?" Suddenly there was a strange feeling of being wronged that filled her heart. Her eyes trembled as the scene of a certain youth leaving her in the western regions appeared in front of her eyes. That day, in the kingdom filled with snow, she looked at his back and her heart was filled with panic and pain. But now there was a feeling that history was repeating itself. How could she let it happen? Why are you so wronged? He slightly knit his brows as he was filled with a playful jealousy. Do you want to see him that much? Who is he? I don't care about him at all right? Luo Qingchen's eyes turned red from anger. She looked at him and said, I'm worried about you, do you understand? Ding, affection has increased by 10. Mission completion rate is now 90%. Her slightly arrogant and angry voice melted the jealousy in his heart and added a touch of gentleness. He gently hugged her and patted her back, saying, How could this emperor let you experience that? You are more suited to live in a warm and comfortable place. Wait for this emperor's soldiers to arrive, then I will send someone to pick you up. The journey of the army was extremely arduous. He would never allow her to put on her armor and enter the battlefield. No, I want to go with you. Luo Qingchen was very determined, almost without any concession. But how could Rong Jing possibly bring her along? He couldn't even bear to let her suffer the slightest bit of hardship, much less follow the army to Qi Kingdom. You know what? We did not announce your identity. In Qi Ye's eyes you are already dead. Rong Jing looked at her and said, Someone among the Qi Kingdom soldiers must have seen your face. If they recognize you, so what? Luo Qingchen pursed her lips and said with a slightly choked voice, I don't care, this emperor cares. Rong Jing softly stroked her hair as his eyes filled with affection. The things they bullied you for, this emperor will take them all back bit by bit. Rong Jing, this emperor won't let you go. As long as you stay in the royal palace, I will take down Qi Kingdom in a month and have Gu Heng come pick you up. She looked into his eyes and knew that she couldn't change his mind. Only, even if she couldn't go openly, couldn't she secretly go? Transmigration female lead. Male god, keep teasing. Chapter 3882. On the day that Rong Jing set off, the weather was especially good. The sky was clear and white. Luo Qingchen was dressed in luxurious clothes and waved at him from the city gate. Rong Jing kept looking back. He had ordered his men to keep an eye on Luo Qingchen and not let her take half a step out of Tianxian City. But the problem was, this wasn't a special plane. If she wanted to leave a place, no one would be able to stop her. The reason why she was dressed luxuriously was to compare it with the clothes she was going to wear. Rong Jing sent people to guard her door 24 hours a day. Moreover, they were all personal bodyguards that he had specially trained. Luo Qingchen said that if she didn't have the ability to teleport, she wouldn't be able to walk out of this door. After about half an hour, she changed into a black outfit. Her long hair was tied up like a man's, looking especially refreshing. The place she teleported to was the Dead City. Because she hadn't been to the other routes, she used her ability to get there. At this time, the Rong army hadn't arrived yet. Luo Qingchen waited for a while before they arrived. Suddenly, she felt that the teleportation ability was still useful. At least it could save her a lot of trouble. However, it still took her some time to blend in with the Rong army. Although the process was complicated, it ended well. Rong Jing had two powerful generals under his command. One was called Chao Meng and the other was Sheng. Chao Meng, as his name suggested, focused more on the physique of his soldiers. In his eyes, as long as the soldier's physique was strong enough, they could defeat everything. However, Ansheng was different. Although he was also brave and good at fighting, he cared more about the right time, place, and people. Luo Qingchen saw this point. When the Rong army passed by the dead city, she volunteered herself and got the position of Ansheng's strategist. The role of a strategist was very important in war. Moreover, Luo Qingchen's suggestion made Ansheng's eyes light up. Brother Chen's suggestion is overrated. I will introduce you to the king in a few days. When Luo Qingchen arrived, she told her name, Chen Qing Luo. At that time, Ansheng was still stroking his beard, looking at her with a pondering expression. Qing Luo is slow, the cool breeze comes by itself. Good name, good name. Luo Qingchen's lips curled into a smile. She had just blurted out the name, and there was nothing poetic or meaningful about it. I think the king is missing. I'm not one for flattery. It won't be good if I disturb the king. Luo Qingchen replied, We will soon reach the borders of the Qi kingdom. No matter how well we hide, the Qi kingdom will definitely know that the Rong kingdom's army is pressing on their borders. This is the first obstacle in this battle. What is Brother Chen's opinion? Luo Qingchen narrowed her eyes and said, I suggest we start the war. Rather than being afraid that they would discover the slow advance of the army, it was better to directly arrive at the border and start the battle. This way they would be caught off guard. Although Luo Qingchen's suggestion was very bold, she felt that Rong Jing would definitely accept it. In the main tent of the military camp, after Ansheng made this suggestion, Rong Jing's eyes flashed with a faint light. It was deep and mysterious, but it was an emotion that couldn't be seen through. Did you think of this yourself? Ansheng was Rong Jing's capable general. He had followed him for many years, so he understood his subordinate's temperament. Ansheng didn't need to be reckless. He was very good at strategizing, but he rarely came up with such a radical plan. Transmigration female lead. Prince Charming can't stop teasing. Chapter 3883. During this period of time, Rong's army had been heading north without encountering any obstacles. Every time they encountered some difficulties, someone would come up with a plan, and it was always Ansheng. I don't even recognize you anymore. Rong Jing was wearing a black cloak, and his eyes were as dark as ink. Ansheng didn't dare to look him in the eye. He lowered his head and cupped his hands. This general believes that this is indeed a way to catch them off guard. Indeed. Rong Jing narrowed his eyes. Then let's do as you say. Yes, king. 3 days later, Rong's army suppressed Qi's borders. Rong Jing didn't stop at all. He directly killed all the Qi soldiers at the border. Taking advantage of the fact that the enemy hadn't fully recovered, he triumphantly advanced. Because Ansheng placed importance on Luo Qingchen, he specially set up a separate tent for her, and it was in a rather remote place. Luo Qingchen's meaning was that it would be better for her to observe the stars at night. In reality, it was to prevent her and Rong Jing from having too much fate. It wouldn't be good if they met. Although she had already disguised herself, she dared to guarantee that as long as Rong Jing saw her back, he would be able to recognize her. She was certain, and very certain. She had been in this world for a long time, but this was the first time she had stepped onto Qi's soil. Looking at the stars in the sky, she couldn't help but think of the time when the original owner fought for Qi. Memories flooded her mind, and it was extremely sad. It was as if just thinking about it for a moment would cause her to be in so much pain that she wished she was dead. This was the emotion that the original owner had transmitted to her. In this silent night it was especially strong. At the same time, in the Grand Council, Qi's expression wasn't good. The ministers in the Grand Council were all offering suggestions, but they all fell into a serious state. Ever since the battle in the City of Death a few years ago, we have always been at peace with Rome. This time, why is Rome so determined to send troops to us, and even travel so far? Traveling so far isn't the most shocking thing. The most shocking thing is that Rong's ruler, Rongjing, is personally leading the troops. He has never personally led an army before. What are you all afraid of? Is it because our Qi Kingdom's army is inferior to theirs? Rongjing actually dared to personally lead his troops here from afar. We'll make sure he never returns. There were people who were worried, and there were also people who wanted to charge and break through the enemy lines. Qi Yi narrowed his eyes slightly. He was indeed a little worried. Ever since he ascended the throne, the internal members of Qi Kingdom had not been completely wiped out, and that was one of the things that worried him. Secondly, Luo Qinchen had gone missing in the City of Death, and her body had yet to be found. He felt uneasy. On the surface, he told himself that his uneasiness came from the 300,000 commanders' tally in Luo Qinchen's hands, but in his heart, there was a particularly strange feeling. During this period of time, he would often dream of many scenes from the past. She was still the most favored princess in the palace, and everyone loved her dearly. The crown prince, the other princes, and the eldest princess, she seemed to be a woman who was born and raised in the palm of his hand, but one day she put on the armor for him and fought everywhere. In his dreams, Qi Yi felt his heart throbbing, and that inexplicable feeling of suffocation and heartache. It wasn't that he didn't think that Luo Qinchen would die in one of the battles, but he always believed that as long as she still wanted to be with him, no matter how difficult it was, she wouldn't let herself die. But this time, she had been missing for a long time. Transmigration female lead, Adonis can't stop teasing. Chapter 3884. It had been so long that he almost forgot that a young girl had appeared in his world. She had helped him expand his territory and overcome all obstacles for him. It was probably because he finally stood at the highest position that he felt lonely. Neither the Empress nor the harem of 3,000 beauties could make up for the emptiness in his heart. Rong's strength cannot be underestimated. Since Prince Rong has personally led an army to attack, it proves that he is determined to win. Qi Yi frowned slightly. But our Qi Kingdom is not made of paper. Qi Yi and the ministers of the Grand Council discussed for 3 days and 3 nights before finally deciding on a plan to face the enemy. Rong was backed by a desert, so the people who lived in Rong for many years should be very afraid of the heat. As long as they controlled the water sources near Qi and set up an ambush, Rong's troops would be easily wiped out. If Rong's troops were really strong, they could also poison the water. Qi Kingdom would definitely be able to win without a fight. This suggestion was made by the current Prime Minister of Qi, who was also the father of the Queen of Qi. In fact, in Qi Ye's eyes, ambushing was fine, but he disdained to do something as despicable as poisoning. Although the plan had been set, he argued with the Prime Minister that very night. When he returned to his sleeping quarters that night, Song Jiji received her father's orders. She handed Qi Yi a cup of tea and said, "Your Majesty, actually, Father's suggestion is for the good of the Qi Kingdom. This time, the Rong Kingdom is coming aggressively, so their morale must be high." If, bang, in the next second, the teacup shattered all over the floor. Song Jiji was shocked by the shards on the floor. Before she became Qi Ye's wife and the Queen of Qi, Song Jiji had always thought that Qi Yi might have loved her. Whether it was her appearance, her personality, or her identity as the Prime Minister's daughter. But it wasn't until she became the Queen of Qi and the head of the harem that she realized that perhaps Qi Yi had never loved her. He married her and became the Queen of Qi only because she was the Prime Minister's daughter. Yes, she was only the Prime Minister's daughter. After she married him, they had always treated each other with respect and politeness, but they lacked the warmth that husband and wife should have. And now, Qi Yi didn't even treat her with respect. The shattered teacup on the floor was just like her heart. Even if she was the daughter of the Prime Minister, even if there were many reasons for her to marry him. However, she was a woman after all. She had never received the love and care that she needed. Most of the time, Qi Yi would rather stay alone in the long-abandoned Bihua pavilion than step into her palace. What kind of place was Bihua Pavilion? It was a palace built by the late king himself for the princess. Once upon a time, every blade of grass, every tree, every brick, and every tile was so precious. She hated that place and hated the people who lived there even more. She was relying on the fact that she had 300,000 tiger talismans in her hands to make Qi Yi worry. Therefore, when she went to the Rong Kingdom, she sent assassins to kill her. She absolutely could not let Luo Qingchen have so many worries in Qi Ye's life, so only when she died would all the connections end. But strangely, none of the killers came back, and Luo Qingchen was nowhere to be found. After she found out about Qie, she went to investigate again, but there was still no result. She didn't know where Luo Qingchen had gone. But since there was no news of her, then she shouldn't appear again for the rest of her life. So be it. Disappear from this world. Transmigration female lead. Prince Charming can't stop flirting. Chapter 3885. However, at that moment, Song Jiji was feeling incomparably flustered. Qi Yi had never been so fierce to her before. She knew very well that she had touched Qi Ye's reverse scale by acting as her father's lobbyist. King, please calm down. Song Jiji immediately knelt on the ground, her voice trembling. You and your father are jackals of the same lair. I don't care. Qi Ye's voice was very cold, as if it wanted to freeze people. A hint of ruthlessness flashed through his eyes as he said, "But I won't use despicable methods." I understand. Song Jiji took a deep breath. I won't say it again in the future. King, don't worry. Let me serve you, get lost. Qi Yi didn't know why he was so anxious. It was as if there was a heavy dark cloud in his heart, pressing down on him until he couldn't breathe. This person beside him didn't seem to be the person he wanted in his heart. And the person he wanted in his heart seemed to have been personally tortured to the end by him. Qi Yi felt an inexplicable pain in his heart at this moment, and it was the kind that drilled into the bottom of his heart. The next day, there was a heavy rain in Qi Kingdom. This heavy rain seemed to be telling of Qi Kingdom's decline and desolation. In the next half a month, Rong Kingdom and Qi Kingdom had more than 10 clashes, big and small, and Qi Kingdom was defeated in the end. Luo Qingchen realized that the closer she got to Qi Kingdom, the more soldiers there were around her tent. She tried to communicate with them, but they didn't seem to want to communicate with her. In fact, the reason why Rong Kingdom's army could be so unstoppable had a lot to do with Luo Qingchen's strategy. Because she knew Qi Kingdom too well, she even knew what kind of general would use what kind of attack strategy. Therefore, it was always very easy to resist. It could even be said that it was effortless. And Sheng was also very appreciative of her. He had mentioned her to Rong Jing several times and wanted to introduce her to him. However, when Rong Jing heard her name for the first time, his eyes were like a thick layer of ink that couldn't be melted. After a long while, he raised his eyes and smiled faintly. Does he want to see me? Well. And Sheng looked embarrassed. After a few seconds of hesitation, he said, Who in this world wouldn't want to see the king? There's no need for that. Rong Jing narrowed his eyes and said, We will send people to protect this strategist, and not let her come to any harm. However, the truth was that when they were about to reach the capital of the Rong Kingdom, someone had drugged her food. After eating a few mouthfuls, she realized that something was wrong, but she had already fallen asleep. When she woke up, she was in another warm and comfortable tent. Rong Jing gently knocked her head with a book and said, Are you done? You. Luo Qingchen stared at Rong Jing and said, You drugged me. Don't you know that you only sleep for a few hours a day? Rong Jing frowned slightly and looked at her helplessly. If I didn't drug you, would you be able to sleep well? I'm just concerned about our Rong soldiers. So you're saying that we're useless? I didn't say that. I just thought that I would know more about Qi Kingdom's military formations. Luo Qingchen pursed her lips and said, When did you know that I was following you? After we left the dead city, and Sheng made a suggestion. We asked him who it was, and he said that it was a strategist named Chen Qingluo. Rong Jing snorted and looked at her. Do you think that we don't recognize your name, or that we don't recognize you? Transmigration female lead. Prince Charming can't stop teasing. Chapter 3886. Luo Qingchen sat up and stared at Rong Jing with wide eyes. She wanted him to feel that she had been wronged so that he would be lenient with her. You clearly know, yet you're not saying it. She pursed her lips and said, Tell me, are you doing it on purpose? This one is doing it on purpose. Rong Jing put the outer robe on her and said, I told you not to come with me on this long journey, but since we're already out, this one can't be at ease letting you go back alone. Humph. Luo Qingchen gave a soft snort and said, Could it be that I haven't made any contributions to the King's Rong country army? She had clearly calculated all the advantages and disadvantages, doing her best to minimize the losses to their troop. But seeing his angry expression, she felt a strange sense of grievance in her heart. Rong Jing saw that she was blinking and her eyes were misty. He wanted to say something, but he couldn't bring himself to say it. He gave a soft sigh and hugged her as he said, This one knows you're strong and knows that it was because of your strategy that we were able to travel so smoothly, but this one doesn't want you to experience this again. He knew everything that happened to her in the Qi country. It was because of this that he didn't want to bring her to the battlefield, and he didn't want her to remember what happened in the past. She was the most precious person in his life, and he really didn't want her to be hurt even a little bit. It's not the same. Luo Qingchen gently shook her head and said, You're not the same as him. I'm also not the same as him. Not only will I not feel sad, I will even feel very happy. Luo Qingchen paused and said, Because I can always be by your side. If you encounter any danger, I can protect you. When she said this, her eyes unconsciously froze for a moment and trembled slightly. The memories of the past seemed to appear in her mind. Her powerless situation from those years was slowly appearing in front of her eyes. As long as she could be by his side, she would feel very safe. Even if they lived and died together, she would not be afraid. I don't need you to protect you. Rong Jing was a bit flustered and exasperated. He didn't even bother saying, This one. He pinched her face and said, As long as you're safe, I can go all out no matter when or where. Actually, he was also worried that she wouldn't be by his side. Because he couldn't watch her at all times, he couldn't be sure she was safe. Even if her martial arts were good, what if she fell into a trap was used to threaten him? He wasn't afraid that he wouldn't be able to protect her. What if a bad person had poisoned her food? Rong Jing was very clear that there was nothing in this world that he absolutely could not lose. Your Majesty's frown is really unsightly. Luo Qingchen was surrounded by him. She slightly raised her hand to touch his brows and said, Actually, if I'm by your side, you can protect me better, right? She playfully blinked and blinked again. Rong Jing finally revealed a helpless smile. Yes, yes, yes. Then please stay by this one's side and don't go anywhere. Understood. Ding, affection has increased by 10. Mission completion rate is now 100%. There was a warm feeling that came from the depths of her heart. The grievances that the previous host suffered, Rong Jing used his unique method to fill it up bit by bit. She knew that the young man in front of her really loved her. Chapter 3887. 7 days later, Rong's army reached the last city before Qi's main city. All the water within a 100-mile radius had been poisoned. Of course, Qi didn't know about this. All the ministers in the Grand Council kept it from him because they knew that the current Qi nation couldn't fight against Rong at all. Rong's army had broken through all their cities. Although they had suffered casualties, it was nothing compared to Qi. They had no way out. If they didn't do anything, Qi nation would be finished when Rong's army reached their city. Although poisoning Qi Ye's eyes was a despicable act, the ministers in the Grand Council were willing to be the bad guys as long as they could buy Qi nation some time to breathe. However, in the end, the heavens didn't stand on Qi nation's side this time. Or rather, the heavens didn't stand on Qi Ye's side. Luo Qingchen didn't think about poisoning the water. In the past, she was the one who led the Luo army into battle most of the time. She would often encounter cities that were difficult to take down, or she would be trapped like a beast. But in the end, the original owner relied on her patience and intelligence to turn danger into safety. She didn't use poison during this process, so Luo Qingchen didn't react immediately. However, this time, the goddess of luck's scales had shifted to their side. When she entered the poisonous area of the water, she fell sick. The original owner's body had always been very strong. Even after suffering so much, she had never fallen sick. But because of this, once she fell sick, her illness would be especially fierce and hard to control. Luo Qingchen had been floating and her consciousness wasn't clear, but when she drank the water brought back by the soldiers, she suddenly remembered something. She, who was originally sick, sat up in bed with a whoosh. "What's wrong?" Rong Jing frowned, his eyes filled with worry. She hadn't been able to eat for the past few days, and neither had he. She hadn't slept well, and he hadn't slept at all. Even the entire army had stopped in their tracks, because their commander had no intention of continuing forward. Finally, they were about to reach the city closest to Qi Nation. As long as they took down this city, Qi Nation would have lost half the battle. However, she had fallen ill and he had no time to care about anything else. He even had the thought of returning to the Rong Kingdom. "There's poison." Luo Qingchen rinsed her mouth and felt much more awake. Her back was drenched in cold sweat, and there were beads of sweat on her forehead. However, she felt much stronger than before. A large part of it was probably due to fear. "What?" Rong Jing frowned and said, "Pass down the order. The 3 armies are to investigate." "I don't think it was done by our soldiers." Luo Qingchen frowned. "I am more sensitive to poison, and I am quite familiar with this kind of poison." Her sensitivity to poison was her own matter, but her familiarity with this poison was because of the previous host. The host had been poisoned by this poison before, so she had an impression of it. It was Qie? Or Song Jiji? "Do you think I know?" Luo Qingchen's eyes lit up. "Immediately pass down the order. Don't let anyone get close to the water source." He couldn't have known that I was in the army, so he couldn't have deliberately poisoned me. Then the reason I was poisoned was not because of the food or medicine, but because of the water. An hour later, the soldiers came to report that the surrounding water sources had been tampered with and they could use silver needles to detect the poison. Chapter 3888. He. Rong Jing gave a cold snort. The Qi Kingdom is considered a large country, but they actually use this kind of method. "I don't know." Luo Qingchen slightly knit her brows and said, "Maybe it's him, maybe it's not him." Qi Yi was indeed a person who would do anything to achieve his goals. But in the memories of the previous host, he was not a person who would do this kind of thing. Because his pride was very high, he disdained doing this kind of thing. Of course, perhaps it was because the previous host's understanding of Qi Yi was a bit different, or maybe he was this kind of person. "You're still speaking up for him." Rong Jing slightly narrowed his eyes, and a faint light appeared in his deep eyes as he looked at her and said, "You're really not afraid of this one being jealous?" "Pooh." Luo Qingchen's brows slightly moved and her lips curled into a faint smile as she said, "I'm a patient, you can't be jealous." "So is he more important, or is this one more important?" Hearing Rong Jing's question, Luo Qingchen wanted to laugh even more. "Coo." She cleared her throat and said, "Only a child would choose one of the two, a big girl like me." She slightly paused. She could clearly feel the Liguang flicker in Rong Jing's dark eyes, clearly about to get angry. She gently leaned her head on his shoulder and said, "The most important thing in this world is just you." Luo Qingchen could feel his shoulder slightly tremble, and then a large and warm hand gently rubbed her head as he said, "Sleep, have a good sleep." "Will you always be here?" She slightly looked up and blinked as she asked. "Yes." Rong Jing rubbed her head to make her feel at ease, this one will always be by your side. If you don't move, this one won't move. He really didn't need to move. He just sat by the bed and looked at her for several hours. When the sun slowly rose the next day, the first thing she saw when she opened her eyes was his appearance. Are you feeling better? I'm pretty much better. Rong Jing thought for a while and said, I want to send an elite team to escort you. No. Luo Qingchen knew what he was going to say when she saw his expression. He actually wanted her to go back. The enemy was about to arrive at the city gate. It was almost the final battle between the Qi kingdom and the Rong kingdom. Why did he always want her to go back? You're sick, I've already recovered. Luo Qingchen pursed her lips and said, Actually, I've been thinking about it for the past few days. Why didn't I get sick earlier or later? Why did it have to be now? Later, I thought about it. Maybe God was telling me that this is my new life. Or to be more precise, it was not her new life, but the original owner's new life. I fought for this territory bit by bit. Perhaps no one can understand the bitterness of it. Luo Qingchen continued, Now I've taken it back bit by bit with my own hands. It was originally mine. She had to follow Rong Jing into Qi, because she had 300,000 tiger tally. Qi Kingdom had the original owner's family and friends. If Qi Kingdom fought to the death, then the ones who would suffer the most losses would be the common people. She wasn't a kind-hearted person, but a victory built from flesh and blood was too cruel. Since she had 300,000 tiger tally, she could reduce the casualties of this war to a minimum. Rong Jing looked into her eyes. After a long time, he patted her head and said, This one will walk down the path you chose with you. Chapter 3889. As Luo Qingchen had discovered the problem with the water source early on, Rong's soldiers did not suffer any harm. 3 days later, Rong's soldiers arrived at Qi's main city. Although Rong's soldiers had been unstoppable along the way, only they knew the hardships they had faced. It was a belief, the belief of Rong's 500,000 soldiers. At this moment, in Qi's palace, Qi Yi stared at a portrait for a long time, so long that he seemed to have forgotten time and space. It was as if he could return to when he was still the third prince. If he had not ascended to the throne, would everything be different? Why am I so stubborn? Qi Yi looked at the portrait and smiled bitterly, then shook his head. More than half of Qi's soldiers had been killed or injured. Even if he continued to fight this battle, there would be no turning point. Right now, Qi only had 300,000 soldiers left behind by that person. He did not have the tiger tally, so these soldiers could only defend Qi to the death and could not fight for him. Just as he was lost in his thoughts, Song Jiji walked in. She rarely came here, because she knew that this was where that woman had once lived. But now, she had no choice but to come, because Qi could only fight with its back against the wall. Your Majesty, if we use 300,000 soldiers to resist, there is a chance that Qi Kingdom will not be breached. Song Jiji looked tired, but her gorgeous brocade dress supported her body. As the queen of a country, she had worked so hard to reach her current position. She definitely could not lose this title. Here was everything she had, her identity, her position, and that man. She was the man's exclusive queen. Whether he loved her or not, she was still his queen. That woman would never be able to climb to this position. Her corpse had probably been blown to the corners of the desert by the wind, but she was different. In the future, she could be buried in the imperial mausoleum with Qi Yi and enjoy the highest honor after death. Is this the queen's idea, or the prime minister's? Qi Yi snorted coldly, his eyes full of disdain. Does it matter whose idea it is? Song Jiji looked at Qi Yi and said firmly, This is our only chance, isn't it? Could it be that the king was going to hand over the Qi kingdom to someone else? Or is it because those 300,000 soldiers belong to that woman? So, slap, the crisp sound of a slap rang out. Qi Yi had directly slapped Song Jiji, causing her to fall to the ground. King, the tiger tally of 300,000 soldiers was originally left to the princess by the late king. Are you going to tell me that the tiger tally is in your hands? He had always been suspicious about why she was attacked in the City of Death, and why she was trapped in the City of Death. After careful investigation, he found out that Song Jiji might have had something to do with this assassination plan all along. Even if he had already pushed her far away from his side, there would still be people who would not let her go. Was she really that important? Why didn't he know about it himself? King. Song Jiji covered her face with her hands, bit her lips and said, "Those 300,000 soldiers are also from Qi Kingdom. They can't just watch as their country is destroyed. Military orders must be obeyed." Qi narrowed his eyes and sneered. "Do you think the tiger tally is just for decoration? They could defend, but they wouldn't attack. If the person with the tiger tally appeared, they would only listen to that person. We can threaten them." Song Jiji grabbed the corner of Qi Ye's shirt and said, "Father has already prepared everything. As long as the king gives the order, they have no choice but to obey." Chapter 3890. I already have nothing. There are some things that I can't lose. Qi sneered. "If your father wants to go, then go." King. Song Jiji shed a tear. "We really can't just hand over the Qi Kingdom. Those were all things that only belonged to her. How could she forget all the honor and glory? What a pity!" Qi sneered. "I've already written a surrender letter." "What?" Song Jiji's eyes widened. She was in a state of complete shock. Although she didn't fully understand Qi, she understood most of him. This man was definitely not someone who would write a surrender letter. That year, he killed his brother and seized power. Everything was still vivid in his mind. Now, so, you can do whatever you want. Qi frowned slightly. There was a hint of helplessness in his eyes. "I'm going to open the city gates to welcome the king of the Rong Kingdom." Rong Jing. He had heard of this name a long time ago. On the day he was born, half of the clouds were red. The entire world was in a particularly bright state. He was a genius. A few years ago, a diviner had said that if the world could be unified one day, then this person must be Rong Jing. However, he didn't expect it to be so fast. It was so fast that before he could prepare, Rong Jing had already arrived at the city gate. Most importantly, he had a question in his heart. Why would Rong Jing attack the Qi Kingdom without hesitation this time? Logically speaking, since the Qi Kingdom had the intention to seek peace, they would offer something corresponding every year. This could be considered a way for the Rong Kingdom to conserve their energy. But why would the Rong Kingdom attack so aggressively? This was not a wise move for them. Qi didn't know why, but for a long time, he couldn't find an answer. He thought that when he opened the city gates, Rong Jing would probably give him an answer. The Qi Kingdom was indeed much colder than the Rong Kingdom. Rong Jing had long bought warm clothes for Luo Qinchen on the way. He didn't like her wearing armor, so he bought her winter clothes, and the cloak was mostly made of warm rabbit fur. But on the way, he would ask her from time to time, "Are you cold? Should I wear another one?" The weather in Qi Kingdom was really cold. Was this how you faced your enemies in the past? Luo Qinchen didn't feel that she was bitter at first, but after Rong Jing said that, she suddenly felt that she was very pitiful. "Actually, I'm not." Luo Qinchen wants to explain a little. Of course, there was bitterness, but at that time, she had something she wanted to pursue in her heart. She was accompanied by the Luo army, so she was not so miserable. Qinchen. In the next second, Rong Jing held her hands tightly and said, "From now on, you have me by your side. Let bygones be bygones. From now on, no one in this world can bully you." Looking at Rong Jing's serious expression, Luo Qinchen was amused. She rested her chin on her right hand and looked at him with a happy expression. "I've always known that as long as you're here, no one can bully me." Perhaps these words were just for Rong Jing, or perhaps not, but he was him. He had always been him, never changing. King, the city gates are about to open. And Xing came to report. Rong Jing calmly said, Amen? Let's enter the city. Yes. Did Qi come? He should have come, but he didn't. Gu Heng said, but the Qi Kingdom's queen is here. Chapter 3891. When Luo Qingchen heard this, she narrowed her eyes and an extremely cold light flashed through them. Song Zhizhi. This name had always been in her mind and she never dared to forget it. Rong Jing seemed to feel the coldness from her body. He glanced to the side and said, Do you have a grudge with her? Other than her, he didn't care about anyone else in the Qi Kingdom's palace. As for Song Zhizhi, this so-called queen, he only knew about her not long ago. He heard that she was the daughter of the Qi Kingdom's prime minister. If my guess is correct, the person who wanted to kill me in the dead city was her. Luo Qingchen laughed coldly and said, I didn't know if I would be able to meet her. Since she came to me personally, then don't blame her for being impolite. So it was her. Rong Jing's eyes became especially deep. He narrowed his eyes and said, I won't let her leave the Qi Kingdom alive. Rong Jing. She didn't call him king or husband. Instead, she directly called him by his name. Rong Jing was slightly startled. When he turned his head, he met her serious and deep eyes. It was as if she had already made up her mind about something important. No matter how dangerous it was, she had to do it. I want to go personally. Luo Qingchen slowly stood up and put on the big red cloak. The plush hat lightly brushed against her cheek. Her long eyelashes trembled as she said, I want to pay her back double for the harm she caused me all those years ago. Actually, according to her understanding of Song Zhizhi, she wasn't someone who would follow the Qi Kingdom to break through the mountains and rivers. Similarly, she wasn't someone who loved Qi so much that she didn't care about anything. She was different from the original host. She had the Prime Minister's family behind her. She had the family's power and she had to protect her family. How could this kind of person still stand on the city gates when the city was about to be breached? It was simply inconceivable. Luo Qingchen didn't think too much about it and directly walked out of the tent. Looking from afar, there was indeed a woman wearing luxurious clothes standing on the city walls. A few seconds later, the war drums began to sound. Rong Jing and Luo Qingchen were both startled. The Qi Kingdom's forces that had resisted along the way had already been depleted. They no longer had any forces left to contend against the Qi Kingdom. Then what was the meaning of these war drums? 300,000 soldiers of the Qi Kingdom, heed my command. From this moment on, you must attack if I tell you to, and retreat if I tell you to. You need to know that you're not only carrying the lives of your family, but also the entire Qi Kingdom. Song Zhizhi's voice was very loud. She had good hearing, so even though she was far away, she could hear her clearly. It turned out that she wanted to use the 300,000 tiger talismans that Qi Gu gave the host to stop Rongguo from entering the palace. Qi Nation was surrounded by snowy mountains, making it easy to defend and hard to attack. If he had a powerful strategist and a general, he would be able to fight against the Rong Kingdom with 300,000 soldiers. After all, after such a long and arduous journey, Rongguo's morale had weakened significantly. But they didn't even have a good general, let alone a strategist. Perhaps they once had one, but they weren't satisfied. The value of the original host's body, everything about the original host had been squeezed out by them. King, are we going to fight? And Xing said, they have a lot of soldiers. We need to rearrange our defenses and plan. No need. Luo Qingchen waved her hand and said with a soft snort, those 300,000 soldiers won't listen to her. Chapter 3892. And Xing was stunned for a moment. Rong Jing shook his head slightly. We'll listen to the queen. None of you need to come out. I'll go alone. No. Rong Jing immediately refused. This one wants to go with you. This was the city of Qi, surrounded by Qi country's defenses. How could he be at ease with her going alone? Do you trust me? Luo Qingchen glanced at Rong Jing and said, She's definitely not worthy of hurting me. Rong Jing naturally knew that her martial arts were very high. Back in the Dead City, she had faced so many assassins alone, yet she was not injured at all. However, it was different now. At that time, she was just a beauty in front of him, but now, she was the lifeline of his life to him. If she lived, no matter how difficult it was, he could live. However, if she died, he might not even have the desire to live. That was why he had to follow her, just like how he had willfully left Rome country and insisted on following her. Only by staying close to her could he be at ease. All right. Luo Qingchen nodded lightly. Then you can just watch from afar. If there's any danger, you can sacrifice yourself to protect me, all right? The reason why she compromised was because she understood that kind of feeling. She knew that if the other party went alone to face danger, the other person would feel incomparably uneasy. I'll definitely protect you. Rong Jing gently patted her head and said, I'll follow you as long as I'm sure I can protect you. If you want to deal with this on your own, I won't get too close to you. All right. Luo Qingchen nodded. She picked up a moon-white umbrella and walked towards Qi Country's city gate step by step. The sound of the war drums was impassioned, but other than the war drums, there were no other sounds of soldiers. Military orders were like mountains, but in front of the life and death of one's family, in front of the survival of the country, that military order was like a hurdle in one's heart. If one wanted to jump over it, it was too difficult. Luo Qingchen walked forward step by step. Not long after, Song Jiji saw her. Enemies are approaching. Everyone, set up your defenses. She was holding an umbrella, so Song Jiji couldn't see her face clearly. She only knew that the other party seemed to be a woman, and she was holding a weapon in her other hand. Snowflakes fell gently as she walked step by step towards the Qi Kingdom's palace. Her heart felt as if it was a 1,000-pound rock that could not be put down. In this place, the original owner had too many happy memories, too many painful memories, too many memories of obsession. She couldn't erase these memories. These memories were like rotten roots that had taken root in her heart. If she couldn't uproot them, they would exist forever. Prepare to shoot. Song Jiji shouted. Luo Qingchen slowly closed her umbrella. She slowly raised her eyes and looked at Song Jiji, who was on the city wall with a face as pale as snow. At this moment, Song Jiji's eyes widened as she stared at her in horror. You. How could this be? She staggered back, feeling as if she couldn't breathe. Her voice trembled as she said, No, it's impossible. It's impossible. It's impossible that she's still alive. It's impossible that she's still alive. In the snowstorm, Luo Qingchen slowly pulled a tiger tally from her sleeve with her right hand. She raised it slightly and said, The one who has the tiger tally can mobilize 300,000 Qi Country soldiers. This is the rule. The soldiers all put down their arrows and looked at each other. Probably because they were a little far away, they could only see the outline of the tiger tally. They couldn't be sure that it was the tiger tally. At this moment, the servant girl standing beside Song Jiji offered a plan. Chapter 3893. Your Highness, you can just deny it directly. Our secret guards are outside the city gate. Look, there's no one beside her except for a person holding a black umbrella. We just need to let the secret guards kill her, then secretly switch the tiger tally and come back. In this way we can still legitimately resist. When Song Jiji heard this, she felt that it made sense and immediately shouted, Don't be fooled by her. Rongwa wants us to open the city gates and let them in. The tiger tally is fake. As soon as she finished speaking, she glanced at the servant beside her. The secret guards belonging to the Song family immediately rushed over from nearby. Rong Jing frowned slightly. Just as he was about to use his qinggong to move forward, Luo Qingchen had already drawn her Fengwu sword and was about to cut off one of the secret guards' heads. Instantly, blood dripped. Warm blood flowed across the white snow. Luo Qingchen did not even blink. Her eyes were extremely cold. "Come on," she said coldly. The secret guards of the Song family were shocked by this sudden attack, and were at a loss for what to do. Since they were secret guards, they were already used to this kind of fighting and killing. However, at that moment, they were shocked by Luo Qingchen's speed. She was so fast that before they could see clearly, the head of the person leading them had already fallen to the ground. With such skills, even if all of them attacked together, they would only be sending themselves to their death. However, as the secret guards of the Song family, they only killed for the Song family. Their hands were already stained with the blood of innocent people. Therefore, even if they knew that they would lose, they could not retreat. "I'll count to 3. 2 of you attack her flank. I'll attack from behind. The rest of you attack her." Before one of the secret guards could finish speaking, Luo Qingchen rushed to his side with a small step and cut off his arm. Just like that, an arm rolled into the snow. They were instantly enraged. They all drew their swords and attacked in the direction of Luo Qingchen. Clang, clang, clang. The sound of weapons colliding with each other resounded in the wind and snow. Rong Jing had been standing not far from her, holding a hidden weapon in his hand. He knew that his queen would never be hurt by these people, but he stubbornly wanted to protect her in an absolutely safe place. Whether it was those people who wanted to sneak attack her from the side or from the back, before she could swing her phoenix dance sword at them, he had already used his hidden weapons to strike their lifelines. Instant death, without a shred of leeway. Because he knew that she didn't intend to leave any of them alive. Along the way, her phoenix dance sword had never killed anyone. Even when she met the local soldiers, she only injured them and never took their lives. This was the first time she had killed so many people. Everyone was dead. Not a single person survived. When the soldiers standing in front of the city wall saw this, they all knelt down. "Greetings, Your Highness." They still called her princess, but she no longer liked that title. "From now on, just call me queen." She didn't like excessive formalities. When she was in the palace, she rarely called herself queen. But now, she called herself queen. But what she didn't know was that when she said this, a young man standing on the other side of the city wall stared at her without blinking. His eyes were filled with surprise. "Qingchen." He slowly opened his mouth. Although his voice wasn't loud, Luo Qingchen heard it clearly. She didn't respond. Instead, she continued to speak to the 300,000 soldiers in front of her. These 300,000 tiger talismans were left behind by the previous king. "Since they belong to me, I have the right to command you." "No," Song Jiji screamed. "You don't have the right to order them. I am the Queen of Qi Kingdom." Chapter 3894. Qi Kingdom? Luo Qingchen narrowed her eyes slightly, and the corners of her mouth curled into an extremely cold smile. "Does Qi Kingdom still exist?" The cold wind howled, and when she said this sentence, it was filled with extreme mockery. Song Jiji understood the meaning behind her words, but she was unwilling to admit it. She wanted to stand in this position forever and never leave. As long as she was the Queen of Qi Kingdom, she would be the Queen of Qi Kingdom for the rest of her life. In the next second, with a clang, the city gate was opened. Qi slowly walked out step by step. He was alone and did not have any followers by his side, but he gave off a feeling of arrogance. This might be Qi Ye's last pride. He wanted to walk towards her alone in this snowy land, even though he knew that there had always been someone else by her side. He also knew that that person was the king of Rong Kingdom, Rong Jing. But he had to see this side of her. He had too much time with her in this life, but he did not cherish it. Whether it was the time to meet or the time to talk, there was always a long distance between them. Why was all of this? Luo Qingchen did not dodge. The Fengwu sword was still in her hand, and her eyes were filled with coldness. She had been waiting for this moment for a long time. When it really came, the depths of her heart were as calm as a lake, without the slightest fluctuation. It's good that you're still alive. Qi Yi stood in front of her, his deep voice trembling slightly. In fact, Qi Yi knew very well how important this person in front of him was, but he was unwilling to admit it, because since he was young, he had told himself that the country of Qi Kingdom was the thing he should get the most. Everything else could be sacrificed. No one was an exception. But when he really knew that she had gone missing in the dead city, his heart was incomparably flustered. If she was alive, he wanted to see her. If she was dead, he wanted to see her corpse. This was the order he had given to his secret guards. But he was very afraid. What would he do if he really saw a corpse? The memories of those years appeared before his eyes one by one at this moment. Fortunately, she was still alive. Fortunately, it was Qi Kingdom that had died, and she was no longer the princess of Qi Kingdom. The man with the highest authority in Rome Kingdom followed closely behind her step by step. The hidden weapon in his hand was constantly adjusted to the best position to protect her at all times. She eventually became a queen, but not his queen. Amidst the wind and snow, Luo Qingqian's lips curved into an extremely cold smile. Shouldn't the news of me being alive be a nightmare for Prince Qi? Perhaps it was because her voice was too mocking, or perhaps it was because her voice was too cold. When Qi heard this, he felt his back stiffen. His heart actually twitched, and it hurt a little. Her words were sharp, but they were the truth. All this time, he had been consuming her life force and using her body to gain benefits for himself. However, he was still afraid of her and the 300,000 tiger talismans in her hands. Qingqian. Qi Yi laughed bitterly and gently called out her name. Have you always hated me? He. Luo Qingqian sneered almost as soon as Qi finished speaking. Hate? In my life, only someone with enough weight can bear this word. Luo Qingqian narrowed her cold eyes and a faint smile appeared on her lips. You're not worthy. Qi Yi was stunned. After a long while, he said, You've really changed a lot. Chapter 3895. He thought that at least in the last time they met, if she still cared about him, he could go forward and hug her. But there was only coldness in her words. It had only been a few months since she went to Rome. Why did she change so quickly? She became not like her at all. It was probably because Qi Ye's words touched Luo Qingqian's reverse scale. Or perhaps it wasn't her, but the original owner's reverse scale. The emotions that the original owner transmitted to her made her say those words at this moment. So what does Prince Qi think I should be? Luo Qingqian smiled coldly. Should I disregard Imperial Father's obstruction and insist on helping you ascend to the throne? Should I personally destroy my own brother's dream of so many years, and in the end I'm still beheaded? Or should I be like a puppet, constantly killing enemies on the battlefield? My wounds split open and heal again? Should I listen to your every word, even if it's just a word from you, Qi Yi? I can go barefoot on a mountain of blades. Is this what you want? That's a pity. That Luo Qingqian is already dead in the dead city. She smiled disdainfully. I'm not her. Luo Qingqian's voice wasn't loud, but every word was sonorous and powerful. That power carried endless coldness, as if it wanted to completely cut Qi Yi out of her life and out of her world. Heh! Qi Yi laughed at himself, but it wasn't clear whether he was laughing at her or at himself. He stood with his hands behind his back and nodded slightly. So I've already treated her so badly. He didn't use the word you, but her. In the past, she was the Luo Qingqian who followed behind him and always belonged to him alone. Not the current Queen of Rome. It seems that in Prince Qi's heart, you've always felt that I've treated her well. Luo Qingqian snorted, her eyes filled with coldness. I don't mind telling you that when you asked her to choose Rong Zhe's life or to stay by your side, you and her ended. It was just that the original owner was stupid. She had clearly seen through that man, but she still couldn't bear to let go. It's not over until you're dead in the next second. He suddenly grabbed Luo Qingqian's phoenix dance sword. The sharp blade cut across his palm, and fresh blood dripped down. In an instant, he gripped the blade tightly and stabbed it into his own heart. But Luo Qingqian's speed was even faster than her. The moment the blade pierced into his body, she had already retrieved her phoenix dance sword. I should have killed you with my own hands. She took a deep breath and didn't look at him again. She said indifferently, but I want you to know one thing. Blood dripped down drop by drop, and Qi Ye's eyes were filled with self-mockery. What is it? Sometimes, living is 1,000,000 times more painful than dying. This was the last thing she said to Qi Yi, because after saying this, Song Zhizhi rushed down from the city gate like a madwoman. King, what's wrong? Are you crazy for a woman like her? Song Zhizhi's tears instantly fell. After all, she was King Qi's queen, and the woman by his side. Even if she had her family behind her, and there were people she had to protect, she was still his wife, his queen, and the only person who could stand by his side. In the next second, Luo Qingqian raised her phoenix dance sword again without hesitation and pointed it at her throat. Song Zhizhi was stunned, and her face turned pale. You dare to kill me? Let me tell you, Luo Qingqian, I'm the queen of Qi Kingdom. You don't have the right. Chapter 3896. In an instant, before Song Zhizhi could finish her words, the sharp longsword had slashed her face, and fresh blood instantly flowed out. There's nothing in this world that I don't dare to do. Luo Qingqian narrowed her cold eyes. Kill you? How can I let you off so easily? As soon as she finished speaking, she raised the tiger tally in her hand again and said, Today, I promise all the soldiers and citizens of Qi that once Rong enters the city, they will not harm you at all. The change of the world's ruler has nothing to do with you. She's lying. Song Zhizhi covered her injured face and said, Don't listen to her. She hates the Qi Kingdom and everything about it. She'll definitely kill everyone in the Qi Kingdom. We can only give it our all and fight to the death. Everyone looked at each other, not knowing who to listen to. This was not a simple choice. If they made the wrong choice, it would change the fate of an entire country. Song Zhizhi saw that their expressions were a bit shaken, so she continued, Not to mention that Luo Qingqian counts 4, can her words count? I am the queen of Qi. How can you not believe my words? What she says is what I say. In the wind and snow, a voice as cold as water slowly rang out. Rong Jing walked forward step by step and covered her head with the black umbrella. He looked at the 300,000 soldiers in front of him and said, Whether you surrender or defend to the death, the result will be the same. But since our Empress wishes to protect the Qi Kingdom and your safety, we will comply with her wishes. At this moment, Qi Yi and Song Zhizhi were both stunned. Their gazes fell on Rong Jing. Rong's proudest emperor, that man who was cold to the bone, actually said something like this. Was it because the rumors about Rong Jing did not match, or was he already accommodating someone to the bone? After a long while, Qi Yi lowered his eyes slightly. Not a trace of light could be seen in his deep eyes. Luo Qingqian did not have the time to look at him. She turned to look at Rong Jing. Looking into his affectionate eyes, she smiled faintly. A few seconds later, there was a clang as all the weapons fell to the ground. The city gate slowly opened. No! Song Zhizhi roared and rushed forward like a madwoman, wanting to close the gate. However, it was impossible for her to do so on her own. She watched with her own eyes as the Qi Kingdom that she had fought so hard to protect was easily breached. She watched as the person she had chased out of Qi Kingdom with her own hands took her seat. The throne that originally belonged to her, Queen. Rong Jing took her hand and helped her onto his Fergana warhorse. He sat behind her and rode with her. Snowflakes fell one by one, and the sky seemed to have opened. Why do you suddenly want to ride a horse? Luo Qingqian glanced sideways at Rong Jing. Looking at the pampering and bright light in his eyes, she suddenly felt at ease. Just now, he was indeed agitated. She couldn't control her emotions for a moment, but she didn't regret it. There were times when silence was the best weapon, but there were also times when one could only truly hurt others by speaking the words that were buried deep in one's heart. She knew very well that her words would definitely hurt Chi-Yi and leave her bruised all over. Because those things were all true. There was a room in Chi-Ye's heart, and that room was mostly filled with the original owner. However, there was something he wanted more in this life. Therefore, even if the power in that room kept trying to surge out and occupy his heart, he used the word turn a blind eye and sealed that room in a corner. Chapter 3897. However, the seal did not mean that it did not exist. The quieter it was, the more he would think of her. Every night in the dead of night was a kind of torture for him. And now, Luo Qingchen had used her own method to open that door. It was as if she was using an extremely mocking method to tell Chi-Yi. Perhaps she was not the only one who loved him during those absurd years. Perhaps he loved her too. Rong Jing thought for a long time, then slowly opened his mouth to reply, I want you to walk through this place with your feet. It's not worthy. Luo Qingchen knew that Rong Jing's hatred for this place might be even deeper than hers, because he could not bear to let her suffer even the slightest bit of grievance. Rong Jing. She softly called out his name. He glanced to the side and replied, HM? What's wrong? I suddenly want to say something, but it's like a fishbone stuck in my throat. It seems a little pretentious, but I have to say it. Luo Qingchen leaned back slightly, leaning against his body. She gently closed her eyes, and the corners of her mouth lifted into a faint smile. Meeting you is truly a blessing of 3 lifetimes. In the next second, he slightly tightened his grip on her waist, and a warm light flashed in his eyes. Queen, aren't you saying it the other way around? Queen. Luo Qingchen was slightly startled, and lightly pursed her lips. You've always called me Queen before, why did you suddenly call me that today? Because when I see how important these 2 titles are to some people, I can't help but think. He dotingly stroked her head. As long as I am here, you will be the only queen in this world. The moment his voice fell, Rong Jing's Fergana horse stepped into Qi Kingdom. Actually, Rong Kingdom's strength had always been above Qi Kingdom, but Rong Jing had never thought of annexing them and unifying the world. Why? Because he disdained it, because he found it troublesome, because he did not even want the throne. Before he became King Rong, he was a cold and aloof person. However, his royal father had pushed him to this position, so even if he did not like it, he had no choice but to accept it. Therefore, even after ascending to the throne, he was not interested in expanding his territory. He had never personally led an army into battle because he knew that the Rong army would definitely win. Being on the throne meant that he could live the rest of his life peacefully. This was what he had always thought. Little did he know that the appearance of Luo Qingchen had changed his lifelong pursuit. He wanted to give her something better. He wanted her to be in the highest position, where no one could threaten or shake her. He wanted those who had hurt her to pay the price. No one in this world could hurt her, no one could. Rong Jing wasn't lying. After entering the Qi Kingdom, she was the only queen. The harem was the same as when she was in the Rong Kingdom. There was no one else but her. When she stepped into the palace of the Kingdom of Qi again, her heart was still moved. Perhaps it took her a long time to calm down. There were too many memories of the original owner here. Those memories were like a sharp sword, piercing her heart little by little. There were some beautiful memories. For example, Chi-Ye's gaze, Chi-Ye's words, and Chi-Ye's gentle instructions. So, these were the original owner's most beautiful memories. In this world, the most painful thing for 2 people was not knowing each other's feelings, nor was it that the other party did not love you. It was that the other party clearly knew your feelings, but turned a blind eye. This was the deepest trampling, because he knew that you would always be by his side. No matter how much he tortured you, you would never back down. Chapter 3898. Rong Jing didn't kill anyone, including Qi Yi and Song Jiji. Qi Yi was placed under house arrest in a palace, while the Song family members were all locked up in the Supreme Court. Song Jiji strongly requested to see Luo Qingchen, but she never went to see her. What was there to see? Between her and her, it was either she lived or she died. Not long after the Song family was locked up in the Supreme Court, Prime Minister Song committed suicide. As an old official of the previous dynasty, although she was greedy for life and afraid of death, she could not tolerate her country having already declined, yet she was still struggling to live in this world. The Song family members committed suicide one by one in the Supreme Court. Only Song Jiji was left, as well as some servants and maids who were afraid of death. To them, perhaps life in the Supreme Court was not that bad. After all, even in the past, they were just maids of other people's families. After entering the Supreme Court, they were just changing places to suffer. As for Song Jiji, she seemed to have lost her mind. She insisted on waiting for Luo Qingchen. She did not know why she waited for her to come. However, Luo Qingchen did not go to see her for a long time. She only went when she was plagued by an illness. "You're finally here." Song Jiji's voice was a little haggard. She stood up with some difficulty and coughed a few times. "Do you think you really won? Is it important?" Luo Qingchen raised her eyebrows calmly and said, "I've never cared about these things." "You're lying." Song Jiji looked at her hoarsely. "You've cared from the beginning to the end." Cough, cough, cough. Probably because she was a little agitated, she coughed as she spoke. After a long time, she stopped and said in a hoarse voice, that day when you came back from the border, the way you looked at me, I knew how envious you were of me. You were just envious of me. I knew." She would never forget that gaze. It was a gaze that was stubborn to the bone. At that time, she stood high and mighty beside Qi Yi, feeling so proud in her heart. She felt that Qi Yi loved her, because that woman had done so many things for him, but he had never been moved. He still made her his queen and let all the people support her. "But I've never envied you." Luo Qingchen narrowed her eyes. Her eyes were gloomy, and the corners of her mouth curved into an extremely cold smile. "I don't know if he has ever loved me, but I know that he definitely doesn't love you." "You're lying," Song Jiji roared. "I don't believe you. I don't believe you. He must love me, he must love me." She didn't believe that the man who held her hand as they walked up the stairs could not possibly not love her. Impossible. If deceiving yourself was useful, why did you send people to surround me in Death City and kill me? Luo Qingchen sneered. "You knew it then. Your position in Qi Ye's heart is far inferior to mine." "Shut up. Shut up. Don't say any more, don't say any more." Song Jiji covered her ears and screamed at the top of her lungs, as if she could not bear to listen to another word. That's right. She knew. She knew everything. She knew that her position in Qi Ye's heart was far inferior to Luo Qingchen. She even knew that as long as Luo Qingchen returned this time, everything she had would be snatched away by her. She absolutely could not let this happen. That was why she made the first move and sent assassins to surround her in Death City, so that she would never be able to return to Qi Kingdom. Chapter 3899. Actually, you know everything, so why do you have to see me? Luo Qingchen raised her head slightly and said, "Song Jiji, I don't understand you." She asked to see her. No matter what she wanted to say, she would just be humiliated by her. Now that the world was settled, she was destined to have Rong Jing's protection for the rest of her life. She was destined to be doted on for the rest of her life. Now that I've fallen from grace, the Song family is also, cough, cough, cough. At this point, she started coughing violently again. After a long while, she managed to control her coughing and continued, "The Song family is also dead. I've held on until now to wait for you to see me. I just want to say one thing." Luo Qingchen looked at the light in her eyes and was slightly stunned. She was a little surprised. "You." She lowered her tone and the corners of her lips curled into a mocking smile. "You want me to let Qie go?" Silence, 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 there was silence. I've been living for my family all my life. Actually, I know that he's a very proud person. Song Gigi's gaze softened a little. She blinked lightly and said, but even when I arrived at the dead city, I still couldn't disobey my father's wishes. I still stood on the opposite side of him. So, do you feel guilty about him? No. Song Gigi closed her eyes and leaned against the cold wall. She was very thin, as if a gentle breeze could blow her down. Luo Qingchen thought that she wouldn't speak anymore, so she turned around and was about to leave. The next second she said, because I love him, so please let him go. Ha ha. Luo Qingchen couldn't help but feel that it was a little funny. She shook her head and said, you really don't know him well. How could Chia be a person who was afraid of death? He wanted the world, and he could sacrifice everything. That was the ambition in his heart, that was something that he gambled with his life. I don't know him well. Song Gigi's tone was incomparably self-deprecating. She nodded slightly and said, I just want him to live well. After a long while, Luo Qingchen turned around and said in a voice as cold as frost, I didn't even kill you. Do you think I'll kill him? Perhaps Song Gigi is the most painful one. As soon as she finished speaking, she strode forward without looking back. It was snowing in Qi Nation. Rong Jing was holding an umbrella as he waited for her at the entrance of the Supreme Court. He knew that she didn't bring an umbrella and knew that she had come here. Let's go back. Rong Jing extended his hand and said, the Imperial Kitchen has prepared tremella and lotus seeds. Drink them while they're hot. All right. Luo Qingchen nodded lightly and said, the Song family will give a proper burial. Everyone has their own master. I don't want you to be a target for gossip. Since ancient times, the king had to be tolerant to the previous dynasty in order to win the hearts of the people. We only care about what you think. Rong Jing patted her head and said, she is all ready. Not yet, but it will probably happen in a day or two. Rong Jing nodded lightly and said, Chia wanted to see you, but we didn't allow it. No. Luo Qingchen took his hand and said, I've already said what I needed to say in front of the city gate that day. Let him leave. We'll never meet again in this life. All right. Rong Jing, I don't want tremella and lotus seeds. I want iced plums. Rong Jing looked at her brows and a doting smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Tomorrow we'll set off for Rong Nation. She smiled at him, and it was as if a flower could be seen in the depths of her eyes. In this world, the person who understood her the most was still him. A single sentence or even a single word could read all of her thoughts. Rong Jing, it's so good to have you by my side. Then, Miss Luo Qingchen, please stay by my side forever. End. Chapter 3900. Compared to the ending, when I first met you, it was so beautiful. Chia, I never knew how to love her, I only knew how to hurt her, and I never had her. Now that I think about it, perhaps it was all my fault. I let her down. I also accepted the ending. But when others called her Empress, my heart would unconsciously twitch and I would feel suffocated. She was still the Empress, she still lived in the palace, but she would never stand by my side again. Rong Jing put me under house arrest in a palace. He didn't deliberately humiliate me, but I felt that this was the greatest humiliation to me. The winner was king and the loser was in the wrong. But I would always think of what happened when I was young. Father loved her a lot, and because of this, everyone was good to her. The crown prince was good to her, second brother was good to her, and even the eldest princess was good to her. Only I didn't treat her well, only I didn't curry favor with her. But she might not know that I also did it. It wasn't to curry favor, but because I couldn't help it. At that time, my status was low. Although I was a prince, I was even worse than the sons of many ministers. She was high above. Even if she wasn't father's biological daughter, she was still so dazzling. I remember that it was a snow banquet. That day, it was snowing heavily and the palace was holding a banquet. It seemed like it was her first time drinking, and she ran to the imperial garden with a red face. Father was worried that she would get hurt, so he sent many people to follow her, but she still ran around and threw herself into my arms. That was the first time I hugged her, and the only time I hugged her. Her crystal-clear eyes looked at me, making my heart tremble for the first time. It was like all the thoughts in my heart had disappeared, like a spring breeze. At that moment I was shaken. If there wasn't so much power in this life, and I only had one person, perhaps it would be a beautiful thing. But my status, compared to her, the difference was so big. It was probably because this feeling was too strong, making me feel like I should have everything that didn't belong to me. But I had to be strong, strong enough to overshadow her, and then have her stand by my side. Standing there, I was the only one who could see the invisible position. Then, she would make everyone else envious of her. But the more time passed, the more I realized that I was gradually blinded by the so-called power. If I hadn't used her to help me, perhaps I wouldn't have been able to obtain the throne. The crown prince was kind and generous. He had always been diligent and loved the people. I know he's not bad, but there can only be one king in the Qi kingdom, and that must be me, no one else. I used her step by step. I knew that my father loved her dearly. I knew that she had a tiger tally worth 300,000 taels, and I knew that she would never reject me. I had hesitated for a long time about sending her away from Rome. At that time I kept telling myself, don't worry. Just this once, just this last time. As long as she gets Ronggua's important secret, I will definitely bring her back. Then let her be by my side forever. Unfortunately, I let her go this time, but I can't wait for her to come back. No, she did come back, but she was no longer by my side. I've never regretted any of the decisions I've made in my life, but I've never told her my feelings for her. If there was a chance to start over, I hoped that I could go back to the night of the snow banquet. The moment she bumped into my arms, I said to her, love at first sight, no deep feelings. Next year, Jin Xiu, will you marry me? Chapter 39:01. The first time I saw you, I was startled. I dreamt of you. The next time I saw you, my heart palpitated. It was you. Rong Jing. I wasn't that interested in the throne. It was only because of you that I wanted more. When I saw her in the city of death, I knew that I had finally found the meaning of living. Yes, the meaning of living. It was strange. I knew that she wouldn't get hurt with her skills, but I wanted to block the hidden weapon for her. Also, I knew that it was a hidden weapon dipped in poison. Why did I do it? It was probably because I wanted to get her attention. If it was in the past, I would have thought that this method was particularly childish. But when I really did it, I felt that it was a pleasure to do it. Because I had successfully gotten close to her. When I first met her, I didn't want to pretend to be a mute, but I didn't want to talk. The officials in the court all knew that I was cold. That was indeed the case. At that time, I was just thinking about how to respond, but in the end, she asked first. Since it was like that, I could only say it logically. The happiest moment in my life was when she didn't know that I was Rongjing, but she described Rongjing so well. At that time, I always felt a strange smile in my heart, enjoying her smiling face and twinkling eyes. She probably wasn't good at lying, at least I could see through it at a glance. I wanted to accompany her into the palace, but she rejected me. I didn't have to worry about her entering the palace alone. After all, she was walking into my world step by step. I wanted to wait for her in the imperial study, but I heard that she was in some trouble. Thinking about it, I was just teasing her. As expected, her expression stiffened when she saw me. She pulled me and ran towards the south gate. I didn't know that she had so much strength in her small body. Naturally, I couldn't run with her. I could only delay. Let the enemy catch up. Reality proved that the enemy thought that they had something on her, so they chased after her. Not only did I feel inexplicably happy, I was also excited. When I used the identity of Rongjing to protect her, It was the most dazzling moment in my life. I made her empress and gave her the best things in the world, but I still felt that she had something on her mind. She came to the Rhone kingdom as a gift. She must have experienced many things that I don't know about. I didn't want to investigate, but I didn't want to. He was afraid that she was suffering somewhere or being bullied. After an investigation, they found out that it was not as simple as bullying. She had probably dedicated her entire life to Chia. I think I still can't stand forgiving the people who bullied her. Everyone had to pay the price for their actions. Even the high and mighty King Chi had to pay the price. Without any hesitation, I decided to attack Chi. Although on the surface, the Rhone kingdom and the Qi kingdom were evenly matched, in reality, the Rhone kingdom was much stronger than the Qi kingdom. It wasn't impossible to reclaim the Qi kingdom. Although the process was difficult and I was in danger, at least I did it. It was all so that she could once again stand in the palace of the Qi kingdom and become the queen. She wasn't anyone's queen, she was just my queen. Also, I would make those people who had hurt her submit to her forever. From now on, she would never be bullied by anyone. Ding, congratulations on bringing a soul fragment into the lead god space. 75 out of 100.